Class is in session. It's the Pub Sports Radio Hitting the Books football betting show. Monday, September 27th. Ian Cameron with you. Conor Mack will be joining me momentarily, and we will be breaking down the college football week ahead. We'll look ahead to a bunch of Saturday games. We'll, of course, talk weekday NFL and college football as well. The normal routine here on a Monday. Conor will be with me shortly. Grant Arnold away this week, but he'll be back next week. I hope everybody had a good weekend. Hope everybody had a profitable football weekend. Thanks to everybody for joining us here, and welcome to everybody in the chat. If you look back and see the way it went for us with our games that we discussed on last Monday's edition of Hitting the Books, went pretty well overall. I mean, really well. If you tuned in and listened to our early week leans, our early week looks, our early week opinions in college and NFL. Marshall and App State, I think we all kind of like Marshall plus the points, and they were able to get the job done and cash in that game. I like the over as well in that one. Carolina, Houston, Carolina, we all kind of thought they would win the game. It was just a question of would they cover. They did. Middle Tennessee, Charlotte was a push for Middle Tennessee. I like that side. Wake Forest, Virginia, lost there. We had the over, and we got the points we needed out of Wake Forest in that game. We did not get them from Virginia. You got to be worried about this Virginia Cavaliers team just a little bit. That's 2 weeks in a row their defense has looked awful. And for a guy like Bronco Mendenhall, whose defensive background as a head coach, defensive-minded, to not see that Virginia defense really get any better last week against Wake. Very, very worrisome for them moving forward. Liberty, Syracuse, lost with Liberty there. Give Syracuse credit. Liberty getting their 11-game point spread streak snapped. They were 11-0. Against the spread going into that game against Syracuse, and the Orange found a way to get the victory, and they withstood a pretty good comeback in the second half by Liberty in that game after a good start by Syracuse. But Syracuse ends up hanging on, getting the win. UNLV Fresno didn't have much on that game, but we talked about it. Fresno escaping. I did say I was worried about laying the points with Fresno in that spot just because of the, coming off the UCLA win, and they were definitely asleep for the first part of that game. And then when we look at Saturday last week, Kentucky, South Carolina, we talked that game. I like Kentucky minus the points. It was close, but they got the win. They got the cover. I like that Kentucky team quite a bit. And I'm liking that Kentucky team again this week, and we'll get to that a little bit later in the show. Boise State, Utah State. This was probably one of the worst bets I made all week last week. Dead wrong side with Utah State, team that had been very good to me prior to that game against Boise State. Cashed a couple of times with this undervalued Aggies team, but the offense was just completely stuck in mud against Boise. And really, I think their heart got ripped out by a couple of plays that happened in the first half where Utah State was driving the ball down the field, putting some first downs together, moving the ball, and then just some crushing interceptions thrown by Logan Bonner. Not his best game by any stretch of the imagination for Utah State last week, and they end up getting handled by Boise State in that one. Indiana, Western Kentucky, we had the dog. We had the points with Western Kentucky in that game. We had the over, which was also my best bet on the Saturday college football morning kickoff show this past week, and both of those cash in look, Western Kentucky now 4-0 to the over this year, and it's not by accident. This team has gone from a plodding, methodical, actually kind of mediocre offense last year and a good defense last year to a much worse defense this year and a much faster, chuck the ball all over the football field, up-tempo offense, air raid offense this year, and the result has been just a dramatic shift in the totals for Western Kentucky games. And if you've been taking them over the total, you've been cashing in. And they also take advantage of an Indiana team that, look, not great. They just do enough to get the win there, the Indiana Hoosiers in that game. We talked Oregon State, USC. I like the over in that game. It got there. That was good to see. Lots of offense, both sides, especially from Oregon State. I mean, so much for the honeymoon phase of the Dante Williams era as the interim coach. Obviously, the carryover from that big win against Washington State did not happen for USC in that game. Their defense carved up by that Oregon State offense. Good news for me, liking the over there. We talked West Virginia, Oklahoma, and I said I like West Virginia plus the points. That came in as well. A wire-to-wire cover. Hell, they were right in the game to win straight up The defense did a great job against Spencer Rattler and the Oklahoma offense. And West Virginia, did enough offensively to hang in the game. The offense is still very, very shaky for West Virginia, but they do have themselves a solid defense, and we've seen that now back-to-back games for them. So West Virginia, a wire-to-wire winner, getting 17 in that game. UTSA Memphis. Of course, Jose, who's producing the show behind the scenes, and I were talking before the show about UTSA. It couldn't have started worse for them. 21-0 for Memphis in that game. But I didn't panic. Like UTSA was one of my favorite bets of the week. But I said, you know what? It's a long game ahead. It's only the first quarter. Yeah, it's an awful start. You just hope you haven't put yourself behind too big of a deficit. But sure enough, UTSA gets some stops, gets that 21-7 touchdown, and getting the touchdown to make it 21-7 before Memphis went up, say, 24-0 or 28-0. That was key, because that could have been the knockout punch. But UTSA got it to 21-7, and then from there they really grasped control of the game along the line of scrimmage, both sides of the football, and they ended up coming all the way back and beating Memphis to stay undefeated, not only straight up, but against the spread, UTSA as well. So it's been a terrific start for them so far this year. And they get the comeback win against Memphis. Good for this show if you were watching, because we liked UTSA. SMU TCU, we talked that game. SMU plus the points and over the total last week, and both of those cash in with ease. And this SMU offense is no joke. Tanner Mordecai running this offense has been outstanding for the Mustangs. And look, even their defense, they gave up points, they gave up plays, but they also got stops at times when they needed them, forced some turnovers. So really good job by SMU in that game against TCU, and they kind of got TCU's number now. 2 years in a row, they've beaten them. So good job by the Mustangs there. And again, TCU laying points at home, still not a good bet. That's now a couple of times this year, laying points at home for TCU. They have not been able to get the job done. So beware of that. Home favorite has been a money-burning role for TCU as of late. Tennessee, Florida, we did lose there with the over. Really a good job by the Florida defense. They kept Tennessee pretty much under wraps most of that game. Clemson, NC State. Look, I liked NC State, but I didn't necessarily think they'd win the game outright, but they did. Definitely some issues with Clemson. Look, the offense is still not working, at this point in time for the Clemson Tigers. I mean, DJ Uiagalelei still under pressure. The run game couldn't really get on track. The defense it was solid enough to allow them to win the game, but couldn't make stops when they needed it at the end or in overtime. Just an incredibly disappointing loss for Clemson. They're not used to losing, especially in conference play. And now, Dabo Swinney, for the first time, he's got to somehow, get this team to mentally respond to some adversity for the first time in a while. And we'll see if they're able to do that here moving forward. And look, they got Boston College. We're going to talk about that game. It's not an easy game by any stretch of the imagination for Clemson to try to bounce back. So good job by NC State. Big, big win for Dave Doran's team. They've got one hell of a defense too this year, NC State. Good run game with Person and Zonovan Franklin. And, of course, Devin Leary did enough at the quarterback spot. So NC State, solid win there. Nebraska, Michigan State, we fell just short with Michigan State laying the points. They did win the game, but they only won by a field goal in overtime last week against Nebraska. So, but give Nebraska credit, fought, pretty hard in that game, but ended up falling short and losing in overtime, 23-20 to Michigan State in that one. And then the last couple that we were on, Rutgers at Michigan. I was on the Rutgers Scarlet Knights plus the points, and pretty much went the way I kind of thought it would. They'd hang in there, but they just wouldn't be able to move the ball enough to truly threatened to win the game outright against Michigan, but they hung in there, and so did their defense. Look, this Michigan offense for most of the year has looked pretty darn good, and after giving up 20 to Michigan in the first half, they shut them out in the second half. So you got to give Rutgers defense credit for that. It allowed them to hang in there in that game after being down 20-3 at halftime. They got the only points of the second half, and Michigan ends up hanging on for the 20-13 win. So we had Rutgers plus the almost 3 touchdowns worth of points in that game. And they ended up getting the wire-to-wire cover. Cal and Washington, we were on Cal plus 7.5. They got it done. They got it done against the number, I should say. They lose in overtime to Washington, but they do cover the number. Washington's still not ready to be trusted, especially against a solid enough conference opponent, laying a touchdown with that offense, which is still very, very, very sketchy. I mean, other than shredding a bad Arkansas State defense, that's not been a very good offensive football team this year, Washington. And again, they're going to have trouble covering numbers of that magnitude, I think, moving forward, if we're going to see odds makers pricing them that way. And then A&M Arkansas was the last college football game we talked about last week. We all loved Arkansas. We did. I did. Grant did. Conor did. Big Ragu and DJ Big Boss liked Arkansas. Seemed like everybody was making a case for the underdog in that game. But Arkansas lived up to the billing. A very impressive defensive effort. I mean, you hold Texas A&M to 10 points. Zach Calzada never felt comfortable in that game running the offense for Michigan. Or sorry, not for Michigan, for Texas A&M. And the Arkansas defense now, that's 2 games against really good teams. They played Texas and Texas A&M, and they shut down those 2 teams. And we've just seen Texas the last couple weeks light up their opponents offensively like a Christmas tree. The Rice game and then the Texas Tech game over the weekend, where Texas just put up a deluge of points. It's time to start treating Arkansas with a little bit of respect here. And I thought they could compete there in that game with A&M. Did I expect them to win outright? Not necessarily, but am I shocked by it? No. I think this is a damn good football team. I think people are late to the party, figuring out just how good Arkansas is. There's a reason they've covered every point spread this year. The betting markets have been way off, on their power rating for Arkansas this year. And if you can catch on to that kind of thing quicker than the odds makers can, that's why you can cash in on a team like Arkansas. Like I said from early in the year, I think the betting markets are sleeping on this team a bit. They've got one hell of a defense. They blow up the line of scrimmage. The D-line's gotten a pass rush. They haven't let teams have a lot of success running the football against them. I mean, what do you not like? They covered their coverage play down the field, and in the secondary has been really good. I mean, where's the weakness right now for Arkansas's defense? I don't see any. And that's 2 really good teams. They not just beat, they shut down the offense. The Longhorns offense a few weeks ago, and then the Aggies over the weekend. So this Arkansas defense has been terrific. I am concerned about their offense moving forward. I like their run game, and I like KJ Jefferson, but obviously he gets injured on Saturday against A&M, and Malik Hornsby has to take over, and the offense kind of stagnated after that. So keep an eye on the health status of KJ, because look, Malik Hornsby was serviceable. At least he didn't make too many mistakes. But if you're going to have any shot of competing with Georgia and threatening to pull the upset against Georgia in Athens, you're going to need a KJ Jefferson on the field. I don't think you're going to be able to do it with Malik Hornsby. So we're going to have to keep an eye on KJ Jefferson and his status. I think his passing ability in the first half before he got hurt, he did a solid job. I think he's progressing as a, throw it passer. Most of his, he's a very good an athletic quarterback, but the passing game has been a little bit slow developing for him. But I thought he was pretty solid last week before getting hurt against A&M. So that's definitely an injury you're going to want to keep your eye on. And then in the NFL, just quickly, we were on the over in Arizona, Jacksonville. That fell short. We were on the Chargers plus the points. They end up winning outright. Chicago, Cleveland. We were leaning, I think, a little bit to Chicago early in the week, although I ended up really scaling back on that bet as the week went on, but still not a good call there. Cincy, Pittsburgh, we like Cincinnati with the points. They get the win outright. Tampa, Rams, we like the over. That gets there. Seattle, Minnesota, we like the over there. That one fell short. So a little bit more of a mixed bag with the NFL card last week. But that's last week. We'll put last week in the rearview mirror. It's time to move forward to this week. And again, we're waiting on Conor, but we'll get the breakdowns going here. And we will start with a very interesting game, Thursday night ACC action. It's the Virginia Cavaliers taking on the Miami Hurricanes. 2 struggling football teams right now. Pick your poison. Which team you want to back at this moment? Because right now, both of them have not had a good few weeks by any stretch of the imagination. Miami, 4-point home favorites, 61.5, 62 is the total in this game. Virginia getting absolutely obliterated by North Carolina's offense a few weeks ago. You could look at that and say, you know what? It's not totally shocking. Virginia's defense hasn't been great this year, and that's an understatement. But to see them get absolutely carved up again by Wake Forest, last week in a 37-17 loss. Now you got to start thinking maybe this defense just not any good, and maybe there's not anything that Bronco Mendenhall can do, to get this defense for Virginia turned around. And when you look at the numbers in last week's game against Wake Forest, 473 total yards of offense in that game for Wake Forest. It's just not good. You look at the yards per play numbers in that game as well. Ugly for this Virginia defense. Definitely concerning moving forward. 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. I mean, this defense isn't getting a pass rush. They're not stopping the run, obviously, giving up on 45 carries, 203 yards on the ground, or 99 yards, I should say, on the ground last week, but 407 through the air. This secondary is brutal for Virginia. Absolutely terrible. And they gave up just a boatload of passing yards to Sam Howell the week before. And then Sam Hartman doing anything he wants, throwing the football against them last week in that game. And Virginia, we talked about it a bit last week, one-dimensional offense. That's what they've got right now, this team, Virginia. So, they gave up 203 yards rushing to Wake, 270 through the air. Virginia gets 407 passing yards against Wake Forest, only 99 on the ground. And that is almost unheard of for a team that's coached by Bronco Mendenhall, a guy that believes in a balanced offense. The run is a big part of his teams, going back to when he was at BYU many years ago. And this has got to be just killing him inside. Seriously, it's got to be bothering him and pissing him off big time. Now, he's not one of those guys that ever visibly looks upset. He's usually pretty calm, cool, and collected guy in terms of, the way he reacts to things, good or bad. But right now, his team can't run the football. And it's almost whatever they do offensively, whatever success they have, it's through the air with Brennan Armstrong. I mean, there's just no run game whatsoever to speak of right now for this Virginia offense. So can they get the run game going here against Miami? That's going to be the big question. The Miami run defense has been solid, actually. It's not been terrible. 50th in the country, 124 rushing yards per game allowed. And when you think of their schedule, they've played Alabama, they've played Michigan State, they've played a couple of pretty solid teams. It's not bad. But Virginia is a one-way offensive team right now. It's one-way traffic, folks. It's through the air. That's it. It's the only way they're moving the football right now because they're not running it. So the bigger thing to look at statistically in this game is what's Miami's secondary like, because you got to think Virginia's only moving the ball through the air right now. So you want to know how's Miami's secondary playing, and it hasn't been playing good. 245 passing yards allowed per game. They're 92nd in the country in terms of passing defense, Miami. So stylistically and matchup-wise, you would think this Brennan Armstrong-led Virginia passing game against the Miami secondary is a good matchup. On the other side, Miami, like I said, there's nothing that's impressed me. They were 0-3 against the spread prior to last week, and throw that game in the garbage can. I mean, Central Connecticut State, 69-0. I mean, that's an absolute garbage FCS team. And if you look at any FCS rankings, they're among the worst in terms of FCS. So make sure you don't make too much of a big deal of that. I will say, though, for a debut performance, albeit against a really bad team, you got to keep that in mind. Tyler Van Dyke, not Dick Van Dyke, no relation. Tyler Van Dyke, pretty good, really good, taking over because De'Aaron King's hurt, and we're not going to see him, at least I think for a period of time, or at least he may be back this week, but it's still day to day. You never know with those shoulder injuries, how they're going to progress. So you might see Tyler Van Dyke again for Miami. And look, pretty solid last week in the win, 10 of 11, 270, one incomplete pass. That's it. 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Now, granted, they're basically facing a brutal team, very weak FCS entry at home. But really, Virginia's defense is pretty weak right now in its own right after what we've seen the last couple of weeks. And he's playing at home here. I think if it is Van Dyke, I think they could probably have offensive success because Virginia's defense is just not showing any sort of resistance right now. None whatsoever. This is the first time I'm considering a bet on Miami. They're -4 in this game. They haven't covered against an FBS team, and they're playing one in a conference team here. But I'm really worried about this team, Virginia. They can't run the ball. Everything they do is through the air. It's one-dimensional. They can't stop anything on defense. That's troubling for me, and I think I got to see something better out of Virginia before I'm ready to back them. So early week lean for me is the favorite, and probably over the total as well. I know the over fell short last week with Virginia and Wake Forest, but Virginia's defense did their part because they gave up 37 points. You'd think Miami could get to the 30s here at least, if not 40. And Virginia against Miami, through the air, Miami's defensive weakness is the secondary. That could be trouble against Armstrong in this Virginia passing game. So I think the over could be in play here. We've got Conor Mack with us now. Conor, welcome in. What's your thoughts here on this Thursday night college matchup, ACC, Virginia-Miami?
Yeah, this is kind of an ugly one. I mean, it's probably one I'm not going to get to the window with because Virginia, this defense is not very good. Two teams that, haven't performed well or underperformed here at 2-2. Like you said, all they do is throw it. Armstrong, they can score points, even though Wake held them down. That's why I stayed off that game. That was Wake or pass. With this defense, you shouldn't be laying points. But now they're catching 4 points. But I still can't take them with a defense. And I don't want Miami either, in this spot, laying the 4. This was one I kind of looked at the trends. The Hurricanes haven't been good at home against the spread. You talked about they're 0-3 this year. Virginia hasn't been good on the road against the spread lately. And both these teams, though, have been good to the over. I know it's 62, 62.5, whatever it is. I'd lean over. I know we're a lot here, but two teams with not much defense. I'd only look to this over on Thursday night if I were to play.
Yeah, and by the way, I want to point something out. It's important. Last year, the total was mid-50s. Of course, this total is like 61.5, and it was 19-14.
I remember that.
It was a rain. The weather was awful that night in Miami. I remember it distinctly, and it really, really affected negatively both offenses. So that's a reminder to check the weather as well for Thursday night in Miami, but certainly leaning over the total right now. Let's go now to NFL for Thursday night, the NFL game, Thursday night football, Jacksonville, Cincinnati. We've got Cincinnati 7.5-point home favorites here, 46 the total in this game. Cincinnati, impressive in victory against Pittsburgh on Sunday. It was one of the bets I mentioned again last week on the show. Cincinnati plus the points, one of my early week NFL bets, got there. Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, man, what a combo. I guess we're starting to see why Joe Burrow was so adamant to the brass of the Bengals. Get this guy, draft him. Never mind Penei Sewell, never mind the offensive line. Get this guy on our team in this offense. And boy, you're seeing the dividends being paid now to that draft pick. Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow, the cohesion, the timing, the rhythm. I mean, that pass in the second quarter, down the sideline, perfect in stride. The ball was thrown perfectly thrown, right on the money. All he's got to do is extend his hands, essentially, Chase, and the ball is right there, and there's the touchdown. You can't pull off that kind of play without chemistry and without some kind of timing and all that familiarity. And clearly they have that. Joe Burrow and his LSU teammate, Jamar Chase. And look, the defense got after it yesterday against Pittsburgh. So that defense is progressing as well. And let's not forget, against Minnesota, when they won in week 1 of the season in overtime, that was the Bengals defense, C-Mac, making big stops, at key moments of that game. So that defense is improving, right now for the Cincinnati Bengals. I got to give them some credit on that side of the ball. So great win for them. They're obviously the home team. That's usually beneficial Thursday night on a short week, but are we ready to lay 7.5 with them? That's the question. Are we really ready now to say, hey, Cincinnati, let's lay more than a touchdown with you now? I don't know if I'm ready to go there just yet. And I'm going to give you a little glass half full assessment of Jacksonville yesterday because it was another loss. It was frustrating. They let the game slip away from them in the second half again. I'm going to give you glass half full. Glass half full is that's about the best the defense has played all year for Jacksonville. After an opening drive score for Arizona, they got after Murray. They didn't get too many sacks against Kyler Murray, but they pressured him. They made him move in the pocket. They had bodies around his feet, multiple plays in that game, which prevented him from stepping up in the pocket and finding his receivers down the field. That was progress from Jacksonville's defense in that game. And Trevor Lawrence, great 2-minute drill, and at the end of the first half to get Jacksonville right back in the game. And then, of course, the missed field goal, kick return touchdown, which was insane, to really give Jacksonville the momentum going into halftime. And I'm telling you, that game is there for the taking. They're toe-to-toe with Arizona, very good team, and they've got a shot in that game. And then there's one play that just killed Jags, and it killed them mentally, it killed them spiritually, and just their body language sagged after that. And that's the Trevor Lawrence pick six. I mean, it was just off his back foot. Byron Murphy returns it. And then from that gave Arizona the lead. And from that point on, and that's what bad teams do, Connor, things start to snowball. A bad play happens when you got some good momentum going and you can't get it back again. And that's what happened to Jacksonville. But I will say this. That was progress from the Jacksonville team, both sides of the football. Lawrence, he's going to want that back. It was a terrible decision. But, even as good as he might be, he's going to have those type of mistakes, in a rookie year like this. It's going to happen. But there were things to like about Jacksonville, to the point where now I'm feeling this is maybe a little bit too much love now in Cincinnati. But here's what I can't get over. It's Urban Meyer, first-time head coach, short week, travel on the road. The rookie NFL coaches really have a tough time. First-time ever NFL coaches really have a tough time on that Thursday night football. If you go back and look at the last few years, C-Mac, rookie coaches, first-year NFL head coaches, they do not do well on Thursday night football. And that might be enough to keep me just off taking the Jags. I'm considering it. I'm leaning road underdog Jacksonville here, but as of right now, I got to give it some more thought. And I want to see where the injuries are for Jacksonville, because they did have a couple in that game yesterday against Arizona. But bottom line is I'm not quite ready to lay more than a touchdown with Cincinnati just yet, even though I cashed with them yesterday. What do you think here, C-Mac?
Yeah, now they're the home favorite, like you're talking about, laying more than a touchdown. Another big win. I thought they were the better team. These are two teams that I thought over 6 wins. The Bengals, I thought for the season, we took under 6 with the Jags. I couldn't believe that was their win total was 6. I thought that was crazy. I thought if they won 4 games, maybe that'd be an all right year for the Jags, 3 or 4. And like Urban Meyer said, I saw that quote. What was it last week? He goes, "It's like playing Alabama every week." Yeah, this is the NFL. That's why he's all stressed out and freaking out. The guy's, a nutcase. So, but they're on the road, short week, like you talked about. Cincinnati's coming into form, but now you got to lay the touchdown and the hook here. I never like betting Thursday night football. You know that. I was looking at the total, 46. I don't know. Jacksonville's defense has been so bad that I could see it get over. I could see it stay under. Cincinnati kind of win this game. I just see Cincinnati winning by a touchdown, kind of in this spot, and that won't get a cover here, and that'd be with Jacksonville. So I don't know if it's a game I get involved with. Sometimes on these Thursday nights, if I don't like anything, maybe I'll look at a player prop deep in a game like this. But on the side and total, I'll just stay off.
I'm pretty sure that especially after last night, another NFL primetime game going over the total. I think every NFL primetime game is gone this year.
Yeah.
I think every single one has gone over. Even these very mediocre, actually, no, that's not true. Carolina
just went under.
Yeah, that one did stay under. That's the one. I think that's the one under this year in primetime NFL games. But other than that, every Thursday game, Sunday game, Monday game's gone over the total, I believe, so far. So, look, that doesn't mean you blindly bet the NFL primetime game's over. You got to still do your individual handicap matchup and go from there. That ends up. And look, like I said, per play, Jacksonville was only minus 0.6 yards per play and only minus 46 net total yards for the game against Arizona last week.
You're right. They're right there. The pick was the killer. Even I'm going, wow, they're down. Then I think Arizona scored a touchdown and then the pick 6. I mean, it seemed like 14 points within just 20 seconds or something, Well, holy shit. What was that? Yeah. So that was a backbreaker and they were just done after that. So, but they hung in there, for about 3 quarters.
They did. It's an interesting one. Are the Bengals ready to lay 7.5 against anybody? Are the Jacksonville Jaguars ready to cover a point spread against anybody? Because they are 0-3 straight up, 0-3 against the spread. Jacksonville, keep that in mind. So it's interesting. Thursday night. Ugly, yes, exactly. But it'll be fat. It'll be good ugly. It'll be an entertaining ugly game, probably.
It's true.
When it's all said and done. All right, back to college. Friday night, we've got the Houston Cougars and the Tulsa Golden Hurricane. Tulsa 3.5 point home favorites here, 57 the total in this one. Tulsa, of course, in a kind of a tricky spot for them. Remember, they played Ohio State a couple weeks ago, and then they return home to play Arkansas State. I don't think it was their best game by any stretch of the imagination, but they found a way to get past Arkansas State. Arkansas State's got an offense, but they have no defense whatsoever, and Tulsa was able to take advantage of that last week against Arkansas State. One of my bets was the over in that game. One of my actually stronger bets of the Saturday college card was the over in that Arkansas State-Tulsa game, and it flew over the total with room to spare. Davis Brin was very good, 355 yards through the air, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, and they ran the football. They just ran it right down Arkansas State's throat. 349 carries, 308 yards rushing the football for Tulsa. How bad is that Red Wolves defense? My goodness. I mean, they've just been getting ripped every single week, and Tulsa was the beneficiary of that here. I don't know what to make yet of Houston. I mean, it's a team that's, believe it or not, Dana Holgorsen, his team offensively is kind of rough right now. It hasn't been great. They were not. It was an ugly win for them against Navy, 28-20 over the weekend. Clayton Tune is he is what he is. He's a decent quarterback. I don't even think he's good. He's decent. We kept thinking when he took over the starting job he'd be very good. He's been decent at best, and his numbers bear that out. The completion rate is there. 71%, but 5 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. That's not great. He's made some mistakes with it. I do like the way Houston's defense has played the last few weeks. We do have to give them some credit. I think they've actually been stronger on the defensive side of the football this year than they have offensively. Tulsa on the other side, they're a team that I think defensively was very good last year. This year they've had a few more issues, though, defensively. I mean, Ohio State, Arkansas both had a lot of success moving the ball against them here in this one. We've seen the money come in on Tulsa here in this game. Houston laying points, not interested. Houston taking points, somewhat interested. Not a game I bet yet, but I guess early in the week, if I'm looking one way or another, I might look at Houston. I mean, Houston is playing pretty solid defensively, especially the last couple weeks. The question is going to be, can they maintain that? Because you look at what they did against Rice, they shut them down 7 points. And then against Navy, against a triple option that's not always easy to face, they did a decent job holding that group in check. Question is, can that offense move the ball on the road against this Tulsa team? That's going to be the ultimate question. But right now, early in the week, leaning a little bit to Houston. I don't know if I'll be betting the game, but we'll lean Houston early in the week. What do you think here, Conor, Mac, Houston and Tulsa?
Yeah, I don't know what to make of Houston really either. They did handle Rice pretty good. I mean, they won 28-20 against not a very good Navy team. As we see, Texas Tech isn't very good either. They lost to them. Well, at least they're not for real. I don't know. Initially when I look at this, I think over, but I don't. Everything that's trending is saying the under. Tulsa in these matchups before, Tulsa at home, that this might be too many points, and Houston's offense isn't that good, like you talked about. Tulsa kind of got, but after their last few games, you think over. But they played Ohio State and Arkansas State. One thing they can move the ball and score. So I got to look at this one a lot deeper, I think, before I make a play. I wouldn't lay the 3.5. I like Tulsa, but you start laying points with them, I would look the other way. I probably look with Houston here, and the total. Like I said, I got to dig into this total and really look at it, because when I take this, I want to go over, but everything's saying under, so I might be an under here with this one.
Yeah, keep in mind, Tulsa 0-2 against the spread as favorites, 2-0 against the spread as dogs. That's the way it's been for them this year. They covered at Ohio State and at Oklahoma State. And look, they faced 2 pretty good football teams and competed well in those 2 games. But then in the spots where they're expected to do well, UC Davis, they lose that game outright. Let's not forget that happened to Tulsa.
Crazy.
Game of the year. And then last week, life and death, to get past Arkansas State, and they were laying, 14 in that game. So, and again, the defensive side of the football for Tulsa, I don't think it's quite as good as what it was last year. And Houston has shown me pretty good defense so far, especially the last couple of games. So defensive underdog, getting more than a field goal here. It's definitely leaning in that direction right now for me in that game. Iowa, Maryland. How about this one? Big Ten action Friday night. Iowa 4-point road favorites, 46.5 being the total here in this game. Wasn't pretty for Iowa 24-14 against a bad Colorado State team at home is definitely not pretty. And the fact that, look, they gave up 250 yards and they only outgained Colorado State by 28 yards in that game. So it was a struggle. It was a grind for Iowa to get through that game, but they did. Spencer Petras, again, he's average, at the quarterback spot. We're waiting for him to really progress. And 15 to 23, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception this year, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, only completing 59% of his passes. They really rely on the run game. Tyler Goodson, this Iowa team offensively. We'll see if they can run the football here. They're going on the road. They're facing a very, very solid, capable Maryland squad. We'll see if they're able to. And look, Maryland's impressed me. I mean, this has been a solid start to the year for them. 4-0 straight up, 3-1 against the spread, 3-0 at home this year for this Maryland team. It's not going to be an easy atmosphere here for Iowa to go into. And look, I've liked Iowa. I've backed them, I think, a couple of times already this year. I know I took them against Indiana, and I was leaning to them against Iowa State. They got the job done in those 2 games. But when you look at Maryland, what they're doing defensively right now, they are, 160 or so. Let me see. Maryland's defense. Here it is. 28th in the country, 103 rushing yards per game allowed. And the run defense has been there for Mike Loxley's team at a level that it wasn't there last year. I mean, when you look at what this team has done, you look at what they did against Illinois. They did a reasonable job there on the ground in that game against the Illini. When you're giving up, 150 rushing yards on 150 rushing yards on 45 carries, you're doing something right. You're stopping the run if you're Maryland. And if you can stop the run here against Iowa, can they beat you with Petras? I don't know that yet. I don't believe that. I don't trust that to be the case. Going on the road here in a spot like this, that if they shut down the run and stop the run, and the numbers with the run defense for Maryland have been very good, can Iowa go on the road and throw the football to victory? I don't know. I just don't know. I just don't have that full-on belief yet. And look, because let's not forget, the Indiana win, Conor, for Iowa, turnovers galore from Penix Jr. in that game. And the defense set Iowa up with a big lead in that game. They didn't need to do much throwing the football. Petras didn't have to do much. The Iowa State game, same thing. It was a low-scoring defensive battle. Again, Iowa forces a couple Iowa State turnovers to turn the momentum of the game in their favor. And once again, Spencer Petras in the passing game is not asked to do much because they were close or ahead most of the game. That's been the key. What if the run gets stopped here? What if Maryland and a pretty solid offensive football team led by Talia Tagovailoa and a good amount of receivers can maybe get in front in this game at home? Then if you have to ask Iowa to throw the football from behind, I just don't know if they're that kind of team yet to pull that off and be able to do it. So as much as I've liked Iowa, I believe their power rating is sky high now based on all the results. I think Maryland is the home dog at more than a field goal right now is the way I would go in this game. Again, not sure I'll bet it because I've been high on Iowa, but I'm high on their defense and I'm high on the run game. I'm not sure I'm high on the passing game, and this could finally be a game on the road in Big Ten play where we've got to see Iowa make some plays through the air, and I'm not sure they're at that point yet, or Petras is at that point where they're capable of doing that. What do you think here, Conor Mack? It's a good one in the Big Ten.
Yeah, this is a good one. We talk about it all the time. Iowa laying points, even like last week. You just stay away from that game. Even at -4. It's probably not a game I'm going to get involved with, even at this number on the road. But they've been good. I have noticed, looking at some stuff, Iowa on the road, laying points. They're 4-0 against the spread, last 4 road games, 6-1-1, their last 8 conference games. The big key is that Iowa defense. Can it stop, Tua's little brother, because they could throw the ball all over the place. One thing, Maryland's defense has been better. I think you look a little bit under here. I know it's 46. You think they might score, but, so Maryland won 30-24 over West Virginia, 2017 over Illinois. I think this could be another just slugfest here Friday night. And I think Iowa needs to be careful in this one. I like Maryland. I don't know if I want to take the 4 because I could see Iowa winning by 7 or 10. So this one's, an interesting one. I'm going to wait on, but I don't know where to go. I've been high on Iowa as well. I know those games like that at Colorado State, they're perfect to take the dog. They're just not a team that's going to run up the score and win by 40. So they're just not that team. They're just not going to, they don't pass the ball like you talked about. They're a run first team with Goodson. So, yeah, this one's up in the air for me that I'm going to think about all week.
Yeah, and that's the scary part about taking Maryland here. I'm leaning that way. But Iowa's defense, great point by Josh, they can win games by themselves. They've already done that.
Exactly. Yeah, they're pretty elite. For sure, yep.
They're really good on that side of the ball. I mean, stop the run. I mean, you talk about Maryland stopping the run, and Maryland's defensive numbers against the run are terrific. 3.3 yards per rush, or 3.1 yards per rush. That secondary's been good, too, for Maryland. They've got some good corners back there. Some of them might be NFL-bound, 212 passing yards per game allowed. Then you look at Iowa's defense, it's even better. 84 rushing yards allowed, 2.3 yards per carry. I mean, nobody's running the ball against Iowa. It is really good on that side of the ball. And the secondary, it's been pretty good as well in coverage. Iowa's only giving up 187 pass yards per game. They're only giving up 5.8 yards per attempt, 10.7 yards per completion, which is pretty good overall. So this sets up like a defensive battle. But the problem is that they've made the adjustment on these two defenses here. I mean, I think it's an under game. I think it is lower scoring. And look, Maryland, Illinois recently, that was very low scoring on a Friday night. So maybe this number is still too high, but I can tell you it's under or pass for me. It's just a question of 46 now too low. Have we adjusted too much to Maryland now and the improvement in their defense? That's the big question. By the way, check out the poll in the YouTube chat if you are checking it out. We're giving you a look to and asking you basically about various college games, running some polls, which side you like for these particular games that we are talking about here on the show. So make sure you vote. Like in any good election, like any good citizen, doesn't matter what party you support, you get out there and vote. You make sure your voice is heard. So do that with our polls as well. We appreciate it. All right, BYU and Utah State, the final game on Friday night. We've got BYU 7.5-point road favorites, 59 the total. Got to admit when you lose too, not just when you win. And I did that at the early part of the show. Utah State was one of the worst bets I made last week. I mean, obviously, Boise State just runs away with it. The offense shockingly held to 3 points in that game. Not a good day for either Aggie quarterback. Logan Bonner struggled. Two just killer interceptions in the first half when they were moving the ball against Boise. They kept moving the ball, getting to Boise territory, and then it was 2 interceptions. It was a missed field goal. They got stuffed up down once, and I'm like, this is just not going to be Utah State's day. I just got that sense late in the first, just not going to be their day. And sure enough, second half, it finally got away from them. But I'm not ready to just throw Utah State in the garbage because, look, they've been good to me overall. I mean, finally, I lost backing them last week, but I'm tempted to come back to them here. It's a rivalry game. They're at home. They're getting more than a touchdown. And look, BYU wasn't that impressive. In fact, they were downright sloppy in a narrow escape against a very bad South Florida team at home last week on Saturday. So I think Utah State's got a better game in them. I like teams that are well coached when they have a bad game. And Blake Anderson's a good coach for Utah State. Did a great job at Arkansas State. I have no doubt he'll have this team ready to go after a really dismal game against Boise. And now this is the thing with BYU. They've impressed everybody. They've bettered expectations way more than we expected coming into the year. When you look at, the Arizona State win, how they looked in that game, beating Utah, which again looks less and less impressive because Utah, even last weekend, not overly impressive against Washington State. And now the power rating is sky high again on BYU. Jaron Hall's been good. Baylor Romney, when he's came into the game, he's been solid as well for them. They got 2 solid quarterbacks. Defense has been good. Now you're laying a premium now on BYU after those marquee wins, after the Arizona State win, after the Utah win. And sure enough, they were big favorites against South Florida. They never sniffed a point spread cover there. So to me, on the value meter, the value spectrum, BYU isn't on the value spectrum for me right now. I think they're a little overvalued in the betting markets. I'm willing to roll back with Utah State one more time here. If I'm betting it, it's home dog for me. What do you think here, Connor? Friday night, BYU, Utah State.
Yeah, let's look at BYU. I thought that was sloppy too. They jumped out to, I don't know, 20-0, 21-0, and that was just sloppy the rest of the way. They kind of just thought they had the game in the bag, but South Florida, scored a bunch of points and they had to kind of hang on a little bit there. Boise, it just everything went wrong for Utah State, like you talked about. Like Bonner, I think he had 161 at half. Those two picks were
They were
horrible.
moving the ball first half,
They,
and it was 2 interceptions, missed field goal, fourth down
yeah,
stop, Boise 30, and I'm like, man, they're moving the ball and they just can't finish anything. It's frustrating.
yeah, everything went bad. I mean, I thought this game could have been, I don't know, 2017. It should have been close, I thought. I thought it should have been 10-10 right around there at halftime. But Boise played well, made the plays when they had to. Yeah, and their defense kind of bent but didn't break, and they made the plays. But I think the score was closer, the final score, than what it was, 27-3. They just kept shooting themselves in the foot. Utah State. I think BYU is good, and I've used them, but now we're laying over the touchdown, and this has come down, and I think it's settling right here at 7.5 from 10. They beat Utah, that big game. They've had some big wins, but Arizona, they were sloppy the first week. I don't know how good this BYU team is. I think they're pretty good, but now going on the road and laying more than a touchdown here, Utah State's got to be up for this one. If they're not, yeah, something's wrong with them. But I said that against Boise, and they like freaking egg. So I'm only be on Utah State. I mean, I want the points here. If you like BYU, I think this is a game you just stay away from on the road. Wait maybe a week or two, because I wouldn't lay 7.5 on the road. The total's interesting too. Can Utah State score a bunch of points? It's at 60. I'm going to look into the total a little more. I haven't gone into it that far this week.
Yeah, they play at warp speed, Utah State, in terms of tempo. But again, they played at warp speed and didn't put up anything against Boise. So exactly, yeah. I mean, that's why usually the teams that go fast, you like to make a case for the over, but it's not always going to work out if the offense is just not going to be able to execute and finish drives. And that was obviously the issue for Utah State on Saturday against Boise State. Speaking of Saturday, we're going to turn to Saturday now. We've got these Saturday games. Now, these are games every week I handpick them because I bet these games. I've actually got wagers placed on all these games that we're about to talk about, starting with Syracuse and Florida State. Florida State 4.5-point home favorites, 52 the total in this game. Florida State, again, another disappointing loss on the weekend against Louisville. At least there was some fight from them in that game against Louisville, but still the execution was poor. Defense got ripped apart by Malik Cunningham on the ground, through the air. Mackenzie Milton, I think he's the curse of Florida State has gotten to Mackenzie Milton because he's kind of struggled. And this is a good player, very talented. Maybe, coming off that injury, maybe he's not quite what he once was. But I think just, being on this team where things just seem to be going wrong and imploding for Florida State, it's impacted him. Mike Norvell is playing musical quarterbacks. He's gone back and forth all year. Jordan Travis and Mackenzie Milton, and their offense is just not good enough to overcome the defense right now and their shortcomings. There is a concern that after the big win against Liberty, is Liberty a big enough opponent, though, in the eyes of Syracuse to be a letdown spot? I don't think so, because now you're playing in conference. You're going to Florida State. You're going to Tallahassee. How the hell is that a letdown spot? I know Florida State ain't what it used to be. And Bobby Bowden, rest in peace, may he rest in peace, is, I'm sure, rolling around in his grave what's going on with Florida State right now and the way this program is in shambles right now. So I'm sure you can tell which side I'm on. I did bet Syracuse. I got a +5 on the orange. It's still 5s, 4.5s out there right now. I'm buying into Syracuse a little bit. Look, the Ohio win is not impressive because Ohio's terrible, but they hung in there with a Rutgers team that's pretty solid. Defense was good in that game. They just couldn't move the ball. I think they found a quarterback in Garrett Schrader, the Mississippi State transfer. I thought he played well against Liberty, a good defensive team. And he's making plays. He's running with the ball. He's connecting on some pass plays. The Syracuse defense is the best defense maybe Dino Babers has had since he's been the coach there. I've been extremely impressed with Syracuse's defense. They made life tough on Malik Willis, who's had a great season last year and who's obviously a very good quarterback and have been playing well this year up until that Friday night game against Syracuse. So give Syracuse's defense the difference right now. Florida State's defense to Syracuse's defense, there's just no comparison. Syracuse is much better on that side of the ball right now. And yeah, it's not a difficult case in my mind to go against Florida State laying points. And that's exactly what I'm going to be doing here. So give me the Cuse. I don't buy into a letdowner after the Liberty game. You don't let down when you're playing a conference game, a team with the pedigree, the history, the tradition of Florida State. I think if you're Syracuse, you fire back strong here. You rely on that defense to get after it. The Florida State offensive line has really had trouble blocking, protecting up front. And Syracuse has been getting after it, blowing up the line of scrimmage with that D. So I think they're right in this game start to finish, and don't even rule out the possibility of the outright win as well. What do you think, Conor Mack, Syracuse, Florida State?
Yeah, I thought the Syracuse defense, just kind of not crazy impressed me, but they're playing well, and that's what kept them in that Liberty game and really held them down. Liberty got some there in the second half, and then Syracuse held on. Game stayed under. I like the under. DeVito, yeah, I think they found something there maybe in the offense. I would take Syracuse because I just can't lay points with Florida State right now. This game, I don't love it. Now Syracuse has to go on the road. I still think this is a bad football team, and Florida State's bad too. They're desperate for a win, but you can't lay points with them. So I'm with you. I either take these points or just pass this game. I want nothing to do with it. I want the old Florida State. I wish I had a few more points with Syracuse, like a 7.5. I'd really be on Syracuse here, but I lean the Qs with the 5, 4.5, and that's it here in this one.
Yeah, I mean it's been disappointing to say the least for Florida State. Tough to lay points with them. That's the way I pretty much feel about this game as well. Tulane and East Carolina, I believe, is the next game. Yeah, there's Tulane and East Carolina, and then Boston College Clemson is after that. But first, Tulane and East Carolina. We've got Tulane 4-point road favorites in this one. The total sitting at 64 in this game. And that's what I bet. I looked at the total in this game. I'm on over 64 with Tulane and East Carolina. Two teams I like on the offensive side of the football. I'm liking I've obviously liked Michael Pratt in the Tulane offense. I've said that all year. I've sung their praises. That this is a very good offense. He's going to be, I think, he is a solid quarterback. And look, the last 2 weeks you played Ole Miss on the road. You only scored 21 in that game, but you moved the ball. They turned it over a few times. And then against UAB, they lost 28-21 on Saturday, but UAB's got a very good defense. I don't think East Carolina is the defense that Ole Miss is. I don't think East Carolina is the defense that UAB is, and I think that's going to show here in this game against Tulane. I think that Tulane offense moves the ball. On the flip side, I think East Carolina with Holton Ahlers at quarterback, their offense has been pretty good, especially the last few weeks. I mean, against App State, they struggled a bit. But really the last couple of games since then against Marshall, they put up a 42 spot in that game and came back to win against the Thundering Herd. Last game again in there, which was an FCS opponent, they played Charleston Southern. They got up big, 24 points in the first half, and then their defense kind of fell apart late. And that's the issue with ECU. They don't have a great defense still. And they allowed Charleston Southern to get right back into that game on Saturday. And now they're facing a very, very dynamic Tulane offense. East Carolina doesn't play extreme tempo, but they don't plod along either. They're above average tempo. Tulane does play a very fast tempo, so you're going to get a decent amount of pace offensively with both of these teams. And I just think I trust both teams more offensively than defensively right now. So for me, it's the total here. Tulane, ECU over 64. Conor, any thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I'd look over too. I know at 64 it's high, but Tulane's defense isn't very good. And East Carolina, I think, is even worse. This one could just go back and forth, back and forth. But on the side, I like Tulane, but this is where I like East Carolina. It's just 4. I might even take a money line, split my bet. But Ahlers, he can sling it around, I think, at home. They're a lot better than on the road. And I think they're in this game. I take the 4 points with East Carolina in this spot. And, yeah, I think it can get over this total. I think this both defenses are bad. I've seen East Carolina, and I've seen a little Tulane. I remember I watched the first game with Oklahoma and a couple of the games last week. So no defense in this one. So lean over.
All right, lean over and also lean home underdog here,
Yeah,
East Carolina
personally.
for Connor Mack. Boston College and Clemson. We've got Clemson 16-point home favorites, 46.5 the total. Clemson's taking the money in early week action, 14.5 up to 16, 16.5, just assuming, hey, Clemson's bouncing back after the loss against NC State over the weekend. I don't know if it's that simple. I really don't.
I don't know either.
There's some serious issues with this offense. And we're now asking an offense that didn't do much of anything against Georgia Tech at home, that didn't do much, especially in the second half last week or Saturday in the overtime loss to NC State. We're now asking that offense to have enough proficiency and efficiency offensively to win by almost 17 points in this game. Now, granted, it's in Death Valley. That's significant. That Boston College has got to go on the road and play this game. But I believe in Boston College's defense. Now, the defense, a little suspect against Missouri, but Missouri's got a pretty good offense. Bazelak and that passing game is pretty dynamic. And BC, though, they still made the plays when they had to. And I still like, for the most part, what I've seen out of BC at the defensive side of the football. Jeff Hafley, of course, hired from Ohio State when he was the defensive coordinator there, defensive-minded head coach. I think he'll have a good game plan here. And look, it's not going to take much of a game plan to take advantage of Clemson's offensive woes. The O-line's terrible. They can't run the football. They miss ETN, but it's not the running backs. It's the run blocking. It's just not there.
Everything, the whole offense
on DJ Uyunglele, and it just continues to be an issue. I mean, they just cannot get any sort of thrust and push from their O-line. So that's going to make it difficult. And again, we're talking about a team now, Connor, that's 0-4 against the spread. And these teams that have not covered a point spread yet this year, I don't step in front of the falling knife. If you're an 0-4 against the spread team coming into this week, I'm not betting on you. If you're a 4-0 against the spread team coming into this week, I'm not betting against you. I'm waiting to see the markets catch up to where you are. And the markets have not caught up to Clemson where they are right now. Do I have concerns about BC's offense against Clemson's defense, which is still pretty good? Yes, because the defense has been what's held the fort for Clemson. It's why they hung in there against Georgia, even though they lost. It's the reason they beat Georgia Tech, because the offense was bad enough to lose that game, but the defense didn't let Georgia Tech do much of anything. But I saw progress in Boston. I would so much like Boston College more in this game if Phil Jerkovic was there at the quarterback position instead of Dennis Grosel. But at least last week out of Grosel, I saw some improvement in the passing game, and they were able to run the football at will. That's going to be the challenge for Boston College, and that's why this is a small bet for me. It's not something significant. It's a small bet for me, Boston College, plus the points. But when you look at Clemson, they still are pretty good against the run, pretty stout, 119 rushing yards per game, 3.1 yards per carry allowed. A lot of Boston College's offensive success comes from running the football as opposed to throwing it, especially now with Dennis Grosel, the number 2 quarterback, in there for the Eagles. So there is concerns. If Boston College can't move the football over land, through the on the ground, what are they going to do? Is the passing game going to be good enough to be able to move the football here against Clemson if the run game gets shut down? So the total's already been bet down, and I agree with that. It seems like this game should stay under 47. And there's some issues that I've got, concerns that I've got with Boston College's offense in this game, but I have no concerns whatsoever with an 0-4 against the spread team and an offense that looks somewhat broken right now. I've got no issues taking a position against a team laying these kind of points with an offense that just isn't working right now. So, and I'm not automatically thinking bounce back here for Clemson. That was a shattering loss for a team that isn't used to that. An ACC conference game and losing like that. So, good mental adversity type of test here for Clemson coming up. And I'm not sure they pass it to the point where they win this game by 17 or more. What do you think, C-Mac?
Yeah, this is a big test. This is it seems like Clemson is everything's going wrong this year, Of course, they lost Lawrence, a lot of star players, but you thought they'd be pretty good, and they haven't been. I look under in this game as well. That game only got over because overtime, double OT, it went over by a point against NC State. Yeah, I mean, these scores, 10-3 to Georgia, 14-8. We'll see. I think the game is tight. Yeah, BC might have trouble against that Clemson defense. I don't know if this moves anymore. I don't know if this touches 17. I don't know if it's moved a little bit. I like 16 already. I mean, can this get to 17? We'll see. If there will be a little more Clemson money, I'm not sure. I can't take them either. They're just not right now. Either you take the dog in BC or you pass this game. And also look under. Until Clemson shows anything, yeah, it's not going to take my money.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it's one of those games where for me it's just underdog or pass, and I'm going to get involved with the underdog in that one. All right, Louisiana Tech and NC State. Next game here on the slate, we've got NC State 19.5-point home favorites, 55 the total in this game. We talked about Clemson. How do they bounce back from that loss in overtime to NC State? How does NC State play in this game? Coming off just this massive win. Storming the field, of course, and Raleigh after that win against Clemson in overtime. Huge win for the program. Dave Doran's probably best squad there in years. Good defense, good run game with Ricky Person and company. Devin Leary, I should say, it didn't have to do too much, but did enough throwing the football at quarterback for the Wolfpack in that game. But now they're coming off that huge game. Right? They're coming off just this massive win. And now you're going outside ACC play. Let's not forget, this is not a conference game here. This is Louisiana Tech that they're playing in this game. You're stepping outside the conference here and playing the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs. Can you roar back and be just as focused after just that massive win last week? And when you talk about NC State now, yeah, I know they were laying points in this point spread range against South Florida. But when I look at this point spread here and I see 19.5 with NC State, and they were laying 19 just in the first week of the year against South Florida, you can't tell me Louisiana Tech isn't better than South Florida. Come on. I mean, to me, this is a huge something's happened here, Connor. NC State's had their power rating boosted by that Clemson win on Saturday, clearly, because this point spread looks a few notches high.
Well, let's look at it, Ian, real quick. For Mississippi State, right? La Tech loses to them by 1, and NC State goes there and gets their ass whipped by Mississippi State. So I look at that. This is the points here. This might even creep. It's creeped just a little bit, half point to 19.5. I doubt it gets to 21, but yeah, keep going. I'd be on the points here.
Yep, there you go. I mean, Conor just said it. Yep, that's what I bet. I bet it already, and I haven't bet it. I'm probably going to put more on the Louisiana Tech side in this game. I just bet it now, plus 19.5. But I'm getting the sense, too, that this line's creeping up closer to 20 as opposed to going the other way. So if you like Louisiana Tech, and it seems like Conor and I do, there's no rush, wait it out, and this is Skip Holtz's role. How many times have we said this about Skip Holtz? How good is he as a dog, especially a road underdog? The numbers are spectacular with him in this.
Unreal. I've done so. That's when I take him. What did we talk about last week? They were laying 9.5 to North Texas. This is not where we want La Tech. Stay away, stay away. They win 24-17. Don't cover. You want them catching points with Skip Holtz all day, sign me up. And when they're laying something like that to North Texas, stay away, and you'll be good.
Yeah. You're 100% right about that. And look, Austin Allen played very well, or Aaron Allen, I should say, last week at quarterback against North Texas. Now, Austin Kendall did not play last week, injury. So keep an eye on that. And he's the best quarterback they have. The West Virginia, he played at West Virginia. He played at Oklahoma, both schools in the past. He didn't play last week against North Texas. So I'd like to see him back.
That's key.
Play even more. Because Aaron Allen, I don't know if I'd have that same confidence with the La Tech offense. Because look, NC State defense, even if they're sleepwalking after the big win against Clemson, that's still a really good defense. It's no joke, NC State. So I'd like to see hopefully Austin Kendall back at quarterback. But it's plus the points for me with Louisiana Tech right now. Getting 19.5. They've been already twice as an underdog this year, Louisiana Tech. They nearly beat Mississippi State as 20.5-point underdogs in their first game. And then a couple weeks ago against SMU, they should have won that game. They lose it on a Hail Mary at the end of the game as 10.5-point underdogs. They lose by 2. So this is definitely a Louisiana Tech spot. It's certainly not an NC State spot. coming off the biggest win
Yeah.
in the program in many, many years. And a team that just all they do is cover numbers as road underdogs in this price range and this point spread range. So, yeah, Conor and I both liking Louisiana Tech here, plus the points in this one. All right, we move on now. Memphis and Temple. Next game, we've got Memphis, 11.5-point road favorites, 61 the total in this game. I faded Memphis last week. I'm actually looking toward fading Memphis again here with Temple, believe it or not. Yeah, I mean, Temple's got issues. Temple's not a great football team by any stretch of the imagination. But the more I look at what we've seen out of this Temple team this year, the Rutgers game was ugly, but that was all turnover influenced. Temple was just turning the ball over left and right in that game. They actually moved the ball a little bit against Rutgers, but they couldn't stop turning the ball over. They obviously had a tough time against Boston College. It's just Memphis is in this price range right now where are we ready to lay double digits on the road with Memphis so far this year? I mean, the Mississippi State win was a fraudulent win. I said that last week. They were outgained by 222 yards. Mississippi State got a defensive touchdown. They got a special teams touchdown. All kinds of issues for Memphis in that game. They had a 21-0 lead against UTSA and blew it, essentially. UTSA comes back to win 31-28 last week. So the spot's dubious after a collapse like that against the Road Runners last week in that game. And you actually look at Temple and what they've done in the series. They played each other 2 straight years. Temple won 30-28 as 3.5-point dogs 2 years ago, 14.5-point dogs last year. Memphis wins 41-29, but Temple gets the money. Temple gets the money they lost by 12 as 14.5-point underdogs, and Temple outgained Memphis plus 31 in total yards in that game for Temple. I don't trust Memphis as road favorites. I get it, Josh. The offense Seth Hennigan's been solid, but he didn't do much in the second half last week. Temple to me is, and the series history is all Temple, in this matchup. It is all, Temple's covered every recent head-to-head meeting going back almost 10 years. Against this Memphis team. And I kind of like what I'm seeing from the Georgia transfer, DeJuan Mathis at quarterback for Temple. I'm not saying he's great, but he's dual threat. He can move around. I still don't think much of Memphis's defense, to be honest with you. I don't think much of Memphis in terms of their program trajectory, to be honest with you, post Mike Norvell. I don't think Silverfield is moving this program forward. I don't think he's securing the future here right now with Memphis. I don't see this Memphis team quite at the level it was under Norvell. So I'm on Temple here. It's a little bit of an ugly home underdog feel to it, but I've got questions about Memphis and their ability in this price range to get it done, especially when Temple, you go back, look at the last several years, all Temple against the spread, and all they've done is give Memphis fits. And I think those were better Memphis teams, Paxton Lynch Memphis teams, Brady White Memphis teams, better Memphis teams than this year's team that Temple took to the wire. Yeah, give me the home dog here. What do you think, Connor Mack?
Yeah, this one's, to me, I lean Temple. You mentioned how they were 14.5-point dogs last year. That's what I wanted here for me. I'm lean Temple. I don't know if I get to the window. I definitely don't want Memphis. You're right. Laying this here at all. I think Temple can cover. They're moving the ball like you talked about. I mean, they were horrific last year. The defense is still bad. Memphis will score on them. But I think Temple can score on Memphis. I just don't know if it's enough for me to jump on Temple. Like I said, when you mentioned that 14.5, I was like, that's what I want here in this spot. And I don't think I'm going to get it. So I'll probably pass on this one.
Yeah, I think that's not a bad call at all. I do lean over 61 a little bit, but we'll wait and see. I like the side a little bit more than the total with that matchup. All right, Ohio State and Rutgers. Big Ten action. Ohio State 15-point road favorites, 56.5 the total in this game. Rutgers is another one of those teams, folks. Covered every point spread this year. What am I doing with teams that have covered every point spread this year? I ain't betting against them. So I think you know what side I'm looking at in this game. I'm looking at Rutgers. Like we're talking about going to Piscataway. That's going to be a frenzied atmosphere, believe it or not. They're into Rutgers football again. On that campus. I've seen a couple of the home games that they've had this year, and especially the Temple one early in the year. That was a great, great atmosphere. Crowd was into it. They were loud. Greg Schiano has pumped life and excitement and enthusiasm again into Rutgers. I like that performance last week against Michigan. They outgained Michigan by 77 yards. They were minus 0.3 yards per play against Michigan in that game. And their defense shut down, not just stopped, shut down Cade McNamara, that great ground game with Blake Corum and Hassan Haskins. They didn't do anything in the second half of that game against Rutgers. And it allowed Rutgers to, after it was a tough first half, Schiano made good adjustments. The defense was better. The Noah Vidral on the offense got some things going. Pacheco as well on the ground for Rutgers. So, they were a much better team in the second half of that game. And I think that's all Rutgers does. It's not pretty. But all they do is they just hang around and dig in and just stay close. And that's what they did. And that's what I was banking on, taking Rutgers plus the points last week against Michigan. That they're good enough to not get blown out, to hang around, compete with a good enough defense. Yeah. And that's exactly what we saw. In fact, they outgained Michigan. I thought they played toe-to-toe, especially second half. You could say they outplayed Michigan in the second half. On the road in the Big House for a team that was just looking like world beaters. Crushing Western Michigan, crushing Northern Illinois, beating up Washington. I mean, they were looking as impressive as anybody, Michigan, the first few weeks. And like I said, but now Jim Harbaugh's in Big Ten play. He doesn't cover numbers, in Big Ten play consistently. And Rutgers, they were, I think, 7-0 ATS as a road underdog or an underdog overall going into last week. They're a home dog this time, but I'm on him again. We don't know if CJ Stroud is going to play, as to Josh's point in the chat, which means we could be seeing, Jack Miller and the other backup quarterback again for Ohio State in this game. On the road, laying more than 2 touchdowns against what we've seen is clearly a capable defense, a guy that can coach defense as well, Schiano, and Ohio State's defense. It's not like it's been any good. What, you're going to put stock in, wow, finally Ohio State's defense played well last week because they beat Akron? No, not me. Let's see what you can do on the road here against Rutgers in this spot. And again, with Stroud's status for this game, CJ Stroud's status for this game up in the air, it means we could be seeing, the duo of Kyle McCord and Jack Miller again at quarterback. And look, facing Akron at home is one thing if Stroud doesn't play. Going on the road, good environment. They're excited again about the football program at Rutgers. That's going to be a challenge. Give me this home underdog. Rutgers covered every number this year. Let's ride that train while it's still on the tracks. What do you think, Conor Mack, Ohio State, Rutgers?
I'm with you. They just cover. They cover as a favorite. They definitely cover as a dog. They covered last year for me in these big games. Ohio State's just not right yet. Like the injuries with Stroud, their defense, they're just, maybe at the end of the year they'll be humming, and be playing well, but not right now. We talked about people, we're kind of, Michigan's just going to run all over them last week. We were like, this first game, but, we had to go through all our shit. You go through, and the game was tight. And I had the under too. It went under. They'll be pumped for this one too. Rutgers at home. You got to take them here, plus the 15.5. I'm on it.
Yep. Just ride this Rutgers train. I mean, what can you say? 4-0 against the spread this year. The only loss by 7 points last week against Michigan on the road. And now you're getting over 2 touchdowns with them here in this game going into it. And again, the long-term ATS trends back it up as well in terms of how these teams have done, especially Rutgers in terms of the underdog. I've got to hopefully find it here. I know I have it somewhere. There we go. 5-2 against the spread. The last 7 as an underdog. So there you go. I mean, this team getting points, definitely always worth a look, especially the last couple of years. Schiano, just incredible. Remember, this program was just a disaster when he took it over, and what he's done in a year and a bit, unreal. Great job. Nevada and Boise State. Next up, Mountain West action. We've got Boise State 6.5 point home favorites, 57 the total in this game. I like Nevada. I'm going to pick. Sorry, Boise, I'm picking on you again. Even though you beat me last week with Utah State, I'm picking on you again. I'm on Jay Norvell in Nevada here, 6.5. Bye week for Nevada prior to this trip to the Smurf turf, the blue turf in Boise, and a much needed one. I think that was a bit of a slap in the face, that loss to Kansas State, a couple weeks ago. I think Nevada thought they could compete better in that game than they did, and it was not a good day for them. It was, Carson Strong in the offense, which is a very good offense, by the way. Even they struggled in that game against Kansas State a couple weeks ago. I think they're going to bounce back here. I love the spot. They had a humbling loss against Kansas State, 38-17. They actually only lost the yardage battle by 67 and 1.4 per play. Not the blowout that the final score would lead you to believe. I think Carson Strong and the offense have a better game in them. Like I said, bye week. They haven't played since that game, so extra time to prepare. You got Boise off the 27-3 win, but they actually got outgained by 8 yards. This is one of those totally inside-out box scores because Utah State kept moving the ball. It was literally for the entire 4 quarters. Utah State's moving the ball, and they either turn it over, get stopped on 4th downs, miss a field goal, penalties back them out of, field goal position. They have to punt from midfield. This was just over and over. It's like watching the same movie for 4 quarters with Utah State's offense. It's not like Boise's defense completely stopped them from moving the ball. They did. But Utah State just shot themselves in the foot time and time again. I talk about Boise as home favorites. They've not been good for a very long time as home favorites. I know they covered against UTEP. UTEP stinks. They're absolutely awful. I put nothing into that. Wolfpack have dominated this series as well. 7-0 against the spread, their last 7 as an underdog. Not dominated the series, but last year, 3 years ago when they played, it was a 4-point game. Nevada covered. The Wolfpack are excellent in the underdog role, 7-0 against the spread, their last 7 as underdogs. And Boise State, long term, you look back the last 5-10 years, Boise State has a losing point spread record on this blue turf here in Boise. And of course, they lost outright to Oklahoma State a couple weeks ago, the last time they were here. So great spot. Nevada's still one of the better teams in the Mountain West, a contender for sure. Boise is as well. This is a close game, and I wouldn't rule out Nevada not only taking it down to the wire, maybe having a chance to win it outright. Bachmeier and the offense is still inconsistent to me, and the Boise defense has got to show it to me against a team that doesn't consistently shoot themselves in the foot. Let's not forget, UCF shredded Boise's defense the very first game of the year, and this Nevada offense, it's got some similar type explosive characteristics to it as that UCF offense that they faced in the first game of the year. So for me, it's Nevada with the points in this game. Off a bye, great spot, great as an underdog. Sign me up. Michael, thank you very much. Appreciate you joining us. Thanks for the shout out to Conor and I. Conor, what do you think here? Nevada, Boise State.
Yeah, answer Mark's question. I don't know about that, Mark. I mean, the line's already moved down to Rutgers. I don't know if Stroud will make it go up a little bit. I mean, if they announce, so I just be on it. I think it's going to hang right around there, or at least be over the 14. I don't think it drops
below 14.
Yeah, it won't go. Yeah. So I think you're all right, but I don't think it's moving up. Really, this one, I'm with you, but I'm not crazy about it. I just leaning right now. I haven't bet it. I lean UNR. You're right. They're coming off the bye week. They got their ass whipped by Kansas State. And I don't know what to think of Boise either. I mean, they haven't been good as a home favorite. Do I think they're a good football team? Yes. Strange spot. I wish I was catching more than a touchdown here with UNR. I'd feel a little bit better. But I lean to 6.5. This one I wanted to dig in a little bit more, but that was just my initial lean here on this one.
All right, we got a great game here. Cincinnati at Notre Dame. Excellent matchup. Cincinnati 2.5 point road favorites, 51 the total. I like the Bearcats. Anything below a field goal, I like Cincinnati here. I think they're ready to show people what they're made of. I know Notre Dame's 4-0. And look, Notre Dame's getting better. I think we're seeing that the last couple of weeks. The Purdue win was a step in the right direction. The defense just completely overwhelmed Graham Mertz and the Wisconsin offense. It's time I've had it now with believing Graham Mertz is going to be this big-time college quarterback. It's not happening for him, all right? It's just not.
Yeah.
Completely and utterly duped and fooled by the first couple games last year where he looked so great, and he's done nothing essentially since then. It's been mediocre at best ever since then. He just can't make plays under pressure. Game pressure, close game, can't make plays, can't lead the team down the field, turning it over left and right. And that continues to be an issue here for Wisconsin. But this isn't about Wisconsin right now. It's about Notre Dame. They're getting better. The defense was outstanding against Wisconsin. It was very good against Purdue. It got better against Purdue a couple weeks ago. It was excellent against Wisconsin, blowing up the line of scrimmage, stopping the run, harassing Graham Mertz the entire game, picking him off a couple of times. Excellent defense from Notre Dame. No question about that. But, man, that game was a grueling game, physical game. Jack Cohen was banged up with an ankle injury in that game, left the game. Brian Kelly's hopeful he's going to play Saturday against Cincinnati, but not for sure yet. I mean, it was a physical toll that game took on Notre Dame. And now you got to rear back and face another very, very good football team here, Cincinnati. Brian Kelly becomes the winningest college Notre Dame coach of all time, which I couldn't believe he had already achieved that, because Lou Holtz was incredible what he did at Notre Dame, 30 years ago, and that he's already passed Lou Holtz on that list. That's unbelievable by Brian Kelly already achieving that record. And it's his former team. He was with Cincinnati before getting the Notre Dame job. I think it's a good point. Can't get right. I believe in Cincinnati's ability to win these big games against good teams. I do. With Desmond Ridder, a great offense, good skill position talent, a dual threat. And that's the thing against Notre Dame's defense, which is getting better, that they've got a dual threat mobile quarterback with Desmond Ridder. That sure as fuck was not Graham Mertz, a dual threat quarterback that can move out of the pocket. Desmond Ridder can do that with a defense that's going to test Notre Dame every bit as much as Wisconsin's did. I don't love the spot. That's a big game last week. You got to find the gas tank. You got to find the emotion. You got to find the physical gas tank in you to find a way to get yourself revved up all over again for another tough, grinded out physical football game after playing one last week against Wisconsin. I think it's going to be too much to ask for Notre Dame. And let's still not forget, their O-line is still a work in progress. It was a little bit better last week, but Cincinnati's defense is going to test that still work in progress O-line of the Irish here. At below a field goal, I wouldn't lay more than 3, but below a field goal, I'm on Cincinnati. What do you think, Conor, Matt?
Yeah, this one's interesting for me. If I could get 3, and I know Cohn's playing, I'd be on Notre Dame. I know someone said that in the chat. Yeah, those of you undefeated Notre Dame team catching points, it just seems crazy. Cincinnati, this is it, though. This has been circled all year. This was the game, the one they probably are going to go undefeated here at Notre Dame that they needed to win. Yeah, I don't know. I'm a big Cincinnati fan. I always go against Notre Dame, but I'm always interested when they're catching points. Even last week, with Wisconsin they were, and now being a home dog and everyone's, Cincinnati, the pressure of them winning. I think it's a close game. So, yeah, if you like Cincinnati, take it just money line, or you think they could win by just more, at 2 here. So they win by a few. And Cincinnati's for real. So this one could be interesting. Man, it should be a good one.
Yeah, it should be. I believe this is the NBC game. This is NBC on Saturday afternoon, this game. It should be, an excellent football game on Saturday. Looking forward to it. Let's not forget, though. Again, let's not forget. Fourth quarter, you're going to look, wow, what a win for Notre Dame, right? Just dominated last week against Wisconsin, 41-13. Well, hold on now. Two pick sixes. 2.
Yeah, that was all junk. Yeah, the score was
against Wisconsin. Brutal if you had the under, by the way. That's as bad a loss as you could ask for. That game was 10-10 after the third quarter. 10-10. And you think you're looking good with the total at that time, and somehow it goes over the total. That's absolutely brutal if you had the under. Insane. 2 pick sixes and a kick return touchdown, too, as well, early in the fourth quarter by Chris Tyree for Notre Dame. And there you go. They're goodbye under based on all that nonsense. So that's 3 non-offensive touchdowns for Notre Dame in the fourth quarter. And there you go. It turned a close game into a blowout. Be careful about giving the Notre Dame too much credit, for what they did in the fourth quarter. A kick return touchdown and 2 pick sixes against Graham Mertz. So just beware of that. The box score is not going to be look indicative of that 41-13 final score. A lot of crazy plays, non-offensive went Notre Dame's way toward the end. Should be a good game. Now, Notre Dame's improving. They are getting better, and it's not surprising. You would expect them to get better defensively. The offensive line is starting to improve, but are they ready for a second tough game like this in as many weeks against Cincinnati? I guess we'll find out Saturday. I'm not sure they're ready to answer the bell, which is why I'm on Cincinnati. How about Ole Miss, Connor Mack? Are they ready to answer the bell? What a game here. Ole Miss, Alabama, CBS, Brad Nessler, Gary D call this game. We've got Alabama here, 15-point home favorites. The total, 78.5. It's gone up, believe it or not, 75.5 up to 78.5. At some point, do you get interested in the under? Because we've said for weeks now, is Ole Miss defense better? I thought against Louisville, they did look like they were a little bit better this year. Against Tulane, after struggling a bit, the first quarter and a bit against Tulane's offense, they shut them down the rest of the way after that. So Ole Miss defense is getting better. They can get after the quarterback a little bit. D-line's a little bit better. Their coverage game's better. Obviously, this is going to be a tall order. You're taking on this Alabama offense. Bryce Young and the offensive look great. Even in the Florida win where they barely escaped a couple weeks ago, the offense did their part. They moved the ball. They played well. It was really the defense that let Alabama down. And to me, Connor, that's why Ole Miss can hang around in this game. I'm drinking a little hottie toddy Kool-Aid here in this game with Ole Miss. Anything above 2 touchdowns, I like Ole Miss. I think they are. I hate the word for real. It's such a cliche, but I think they have it in them to give Alabama everything they could handle because they did last year in Oxford, and they didn't have anywhere close to the defense that they do now. And they had a much better offense in terms of skill position talent. They had, Mac Jones. They had Jalen Waddle. They had Devontae Smith. They had all their weapons at receiver last year. And Ole Miss still went toe-to-toe with Alabama head-to-head last year. And now I think Ole Miss is every bit as good, if not better, offensively with Matt Corral leading the offense this year. I mean, and they have a bye week, too. Let's not forget that little part of this handicap. Bye week for Ole Miss coming in. Now, you could say Alabama had a bye week because they played, Southern Miss last week. But still, no, this is a legit bye week for Ole Miss. And an extra time to prepare, put wrinkles in the playbook. Lane Kiffin is going to do that. He's going to throw some things there that Alabama's defense isn't expecting going into this game. But Matt Corral's been awesome. Obviously, he hasn't played anyone like Alabama. Louisville's the best team they've played so far, but 9 touchdowns, no interceptions, almost 1,000 passing yards already, 68% completions. The run game has been absolutely terrific for this team. No doubt about that. The way they've been able to run the football, it's been impressive. And again, with their receiving core, they've got some dynamic playmakers on the outside as well, this Ole Miss offense. So I think they can do a lot of things here in this game against Alabama. They can run the football with Jerrion Ealy. He's absolutely outstanding. He's getting, 100 yards in a lot of these games. The receiving core, like I say, they've got weapons. They got Jonathan Mingo. They've got Braylon Sanders. They've got Dontario Drummond. I mean, that is a trio of terrific receivers right now for Lane Kiffin in this offense. And look, the only time we've seen Alabama's defense against a legit team, Florida. Throw out the Miami game. That's not a legit team. All that is an underachieving, poorly coached mess. Don't give Alabama any credit for beating Miami. Miami stinks this year. I think we figured that out. So all of a sudden we're going, wow, what a great job in the opener against Miami. Is it? Because Miami looks like a shit show this season. Do we give Alabama credit for that win? I don't think we'd give them as much credit for that win. They're one legit opponent so far. Legit. Elite opponent, Florida. And Florida moved the ball up and down the field with Emory Jones, especially in the second half against that Bama defense. If Florida can do that, why can't Ole Miss and this electrifying offense do it, especially with a bye week and extra time to prepare? So I'm on the underdog here. I think we've got a barn burner. I think Alabama's got to work to win this game. Never mind the spread. I think they got to work to win this game straight up. Never mind winning by 2 touchdowns or more in this one. So I'm on Ole Miss. I'm drinking this Kool-Aid here. That's hotty toddy for Ole Miss. Off the bye. They gave Alabama fits last year, and I think they do it again here. What do you think, Connor Mack?
I think they do too. I think Alabama can score all over them. I just see it back and forth. I think Ole Miss's defense has been a little better, but look who they've played. I mean, it's been all right. But they'll be able to score, I think, on Bama here a little bit. I'm with you. It's over the 2 touchdowns. Even if they're down, I like the back doors open when you have 15 here. I lean them. I always like Bama. First half, I always usually never go against it. I'm going to dig. I don't know if I'm going to go there in this game. But full game, I think the 15. I lean with Ole Miss. I think the games might be similar to last year. Like you talked about, Alabama, the only one team they played with Florida, and I think Florida. I don't know what to make of Florida. I mean, I think they're good, but I don't know if they're elite at the top there. And the totals, yeah, crazy high. So I mean, can it get there? I don't know. Yeah, maybe at some point if this keeps rising, maybe you take the under. But I wouldn't take the under in this game. I just wouldn't. It'd be over or pass. I think there's points all game long.
Yeah, I mean, Jerry and Ely, great running back, great quarterback, and Matt Corral, the three receivers I mentioned.
Yep.
I mean, they got weapons galore. It's like a bunch of toys, and Lane Kiffin gets to play with them every week. That's how explosive and dynamic they are. With a great offensive line, they brought every starter back. They're taking this shit seriously. They got it. You know how hard it is to get a freaking team from the South fully vaccinated, for
Yeah.
for the season, and somehow Lane Kiffin did that. So they're taking this season like really seriously. Like, we think we're good. We want to make sure there's nobody, we're protecting ourselves so we don't lose players from COVID and all this other stuff, because they think they could have a special season. That's why they went the above and beyond in terms of making sure, they got everybody vaccinated. They didn't want this season to go off the rails for them because of absences. And because I think they know they could have a special year. And this is going to be that test, but I think they're up for it. I think they give Alabama a game. You're right. I can only look over. Even at 78.5, I could only look over the total in this game. You had 90 points 2 years ago with these two teams, and you had 111, 63-48 last year with these two teams. I mean, 42-38, Connor, gets you the over. And I think you could get 42-38. As people really looking at this and saying 42-38 isn't a plausible final score possibility with these two teams and these two offenses. That's why it's even difficult at 78.5 to bet under with these two teams. It's just a question of how much better is Ole Miss defense this year. This is the game we find that out. Arkansas, Georgia. We go from one big SEC game to another. Georgia in this one, right around at 18.5, I believe, the last I looked, 18.5 point home favorite, 49 the total. Speaking of defenses that are for real, we'll find out about Ole Miss this weekend, but Arkansas, that defense is for real. I mean, Texas shut them down a few weeks ago. What have we seen from Texas's offense since Arkansas played them and shut them down? They hung like a 60 spot on Rice, and we saw what they did last weekend against Texas Tech. They did anything we wanted offensively. 70, yeah, exactly. And Arkansas shut that offense down, Connor. Arkansas.
Oh, yeah. That's what I thought they would.
Yeah, and then last week against Texas A&M, I said, I'm not trusting this young quarterback, Calzada, and an A&M offense that struggled to move the ball against Colorado, struggled to move the ball against Kent State. Now, you can say they took their foot off the gas against New Mexico 2 weeks ago, but they didn't move the ball much against them in the second half. That I thought they'd be up against that Arkansas defense, and that's exactly what happened. It was a defensive clinic, surgical, by that Arkansas team. Props to Sam Pittman, who's done an unbelievable coaching job here at Arkansas. Barry Odom, former Missouri head coach, just maybe a guy that's better as a DC. What a job he's done here with this Arkansas defense. They're for real. They're blowing up the line of scrimmage. The pass rush is there. They're stopping the run. They're doing everything you need to be a great defense here. And that defense could keep them in this game. And Arkansas is another one of those teams. We've talked about it with Rutgers. We've talked about it with a few teams already. They are 4-0 against the spread this year. They've covered every number. And I'm not going against the teams that are undefeated ATS this year. They're clearly undervalued. The odds makers have been off with the power rating on teams like Arkansas. It's Arkansas or pass for me. There are matchup concerns. The defense might have to do it all for Arkansas in this game. I don't know if that offense is going to move the football with great success. Georgia's defense is elite. All right. We've seen enough Georgia this year to know that defense is scary good. It's legit. They're going to send a bunch of players to the NFL off that defense for Kirby Smart this year. There's no question about that. And it's not going to be easy. And KJ Jefferson left that game against Texas A&M with an injury. And that meant the backup quarterback had to take over for Arkansas in the victory against A&M. And he was okay. But I'll tell you what, regarding Malik Hornsby, they didn't ask him to put the ball up in the air very often because they had the lead. You're going to need, if you're going to have a legit chance to pull the upset or compete in this game, you need KJ Jefferson. you must have him available for this
Yeah.
game in Arkansas. And I don't know if he is because it's too early in the week. We don't know. They haven't said for sure if he's in or he's out yet. Because, look, I like Braylon Smith, great running back. But Georgia's an unbelievable defense against the run. We know that. It shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody. You can't run on this Georgia defense. 69 rushing yards per game, 2.3 yards per carry. So if they don't have Jefferson and they can't run the football, and it's going to be tough. Like I said, I like Traylon Smith, but this is an elite shutdown run defense. I have no confidence on the road that Malik Hornsby and his 1 for 3 passing against A&M when he came in for Jefferson can move the ball through the air. And if they can't run it and Jefferson doesn't play and they have no passing game, it still could get away from Arkansas to the point where Georgia could still cover this number, 18.5. So the Jefferson injury is significant. And look, he's not a great pocket passer, but he's the best they've got, and he has gotten better throwing the football the last couple of weeks. So it's Arkansas or pass, but I need Jefferson to be available and in the game. And if they are, I think they can do enough to hang in this as a big number. It's Georgia's offense is, obviously with Daniels, it's good. But is it? And look, they walloped Vanderbilt, so that's probably another reason why. And South Carolina the week before, and UAB the week before. That's probably why you're not getting a bargain with Georgia. They're just blowing teams out. Killing teams left and right the last 3 weeks. But this ain't South Carolina, UAB, or Vanderbilt. This is a legit Arkansas defense. I definitely like the under makes sense. I mean, the total's 49 in this game. It should be low scoring. But I'm only looking at Arkansas here. It's just a question of will I? I won't be betting Georgia. I can tell you that. It's Arkansas or pass. It's just a question of will I bet Arkansas? And I probably will only bet it if we have Jefferson on the field. What do you think, Conor Mack?
Yeah, Jefferson or not, I like the under for sure. But for me to back Arkansas as well, I mean, he has to be in. I mean, that's the best they got. He can move around a little bit. Without him, I don't think they can do anything. I mean, they'll have a tough time running it. Yeah, I back Arkansas this way. I think this is a ton of points. I think it could be close. And I think there's been a little bias. They beat the shit out of some really bad teams. And Georgia's really good, too. So it's just made it the last couple weeks like, wow, this team's phenomenal. But I think Arkansas can hang here a bit. I think this might just be too many points. It could be interesting. I mean, I could see Georgia covering, but I could see Arkansas right in this one. But I'm with you. I need Jefferson in there for sure. But and I like the under. I think it's a defensive battle for sure.
Yeah, and in the times JT Daniels hasn't played, I'll give Stetson Bennett credit. He was awful last year. He's definitely improved, and he's played better in spot duty this year as well for Georgia on offense. But look, Arkansas pass for me just because of the fact that, again, I've been on them a bunch this year. We all love them. I don't know who didn't love Arkansas on last Saturday. You liked them, Conor. Grant Arnold on the show last Monday liked them.
We all
loved them on the Saturday morning show. So did DJ Big Boss. Everybody loved Arkansas getting the points, and they won outright. But we'll have to wait and see. Yeah, I'm not saying Stetson Bennett's great, Josh, but he's been a little bit better.
He's come in and done all right. Yeah,
Daniels. But he was even worse last year. That's my point. I'm not saying he went from bad to great, but he's bad to serviceable. But yeah, and he still does make mistakes, no doubt. Tennessee, Missouri 3.0 favorite, 64 the total in this game. I haven't bet the side here, but I am on the total, over the total. Missouri roped Boston College into an over. All right, that's not easy to do. Boston College doesn't play fast. They had a backup quarterback. They've got a good defense. Missouri still moved the ball. I was impressed with Missouri's offense last week against Boston College because that's a solid defense. They move the ball. Basilak's a good quarterback. They can run it as well. Good receivers. And their offense has been good every week, Missouri. But, man, that defense sucks. It is not good, that Missouri defense whatsoever. They continue to struggle to get stops. I don't know where Eli Drinkwitz can turn to fix that defense. It's just giving up big plays every week. And, look, Tennessee's offense shut down. Northwestern kind of struggled last week against Florida. He's going to find it much easier to move the ball.
Struggle.
Yeah.
Horrible in the second half.
It was rough, but look, this ain't Florida's defense now. This is a Missouri defense, Conor, that's been giving it up every single week. I mean, you look at the numbers, 41, 35 to Kentucky, 41 to Boston College. They've just, and 24 at home to Central Michigan. They gave up points and yards in that game as well. I think it's a good bounce back game for Tennessee's offense. Missouri should be able to move the ball at will against Tennessee, which has still a bad defense, which we knew because the defense looked terrible in the spring game for Josh Heupel's team. And of course, we know Missouri plays a little up tempo. Tennessee plays extreme tempo. Does have an SEC shootout, in my opinion, written all over it. So I'm on over 64 here, Tennessee, Missouri. Connor Mack, what are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I want nothing to do with this one. I lean Missouri a little bit, but I don't love the defense and laying 3 points. I think it's right there. I think there could be points. Yeah, I was just so disappointed in Tennessee. I thought they easily could have covered that game, and it slipped away, and they couldn't punch one in. Because I thought they hanged around. I thought they could play with Florida a little bit. They did early, and that whole second half was just some pathetic football to see. And, of course, Mullen put in that touchdown to get the cover. So I don't want anything to Tennessee. I'm down on them, like we talked about earlier. I don't think they get 6 wins. And Missouri, that defense just scares me, and I don't want to lay 3 with them. So this game was a pass for me.
And of course, Joe Milton's been banged up now with Hooker struggling last week, and he got some time last week. Milton, do they make a change again? But I don't know. I'd still prefer Hooker. I mean, I really would. I mean, Milton didn't show me anything at Michigan. He didn't play well against Bowling, although Bowling Green, to their credit, pulled off one of the huge upsets in years in college football, beating Minnesota, 31.5 point underdogs, winning outright at Minnesota against the Gophers. And as I said on Twitter after that game ended, I'd like to report a boat that is capsized in Minnesota. They're not rowing that boat right now in Minnesota after that game on Saturday. So unbelievable upset for Bowling Green last week against Minnesota, one of the biggest ones in a few years for sure. One of the bigger ones, no doubt. All right, next up, Florida. Speaking of Florida, taking on Kentucky. Florida, 8.5 point road favorites, 56 the total in this one. I like Kentucky, home dog. Cashed with Kentucky last week. Florida's in a spot here where they're coming off the Alabama game, a Tennessee game that I know Tennessee's been down the last few years, not as good, but still a rival. Now you got to go on the road and face Kentucky, which is an improving team. I like Will Levis, the Penn State transfer quarterback. I've said that every week. They finally got a team that's capable of putting points up on the scoreboard, Kentucky, and they've been able to do that. And even last week, 16-10, but they had some turnover, they had some fumble issues. Let's not forget that really kept them from putting up more points. What I was impressed with was their defense. Man, it was really tough for South Carolina to get anything going in that game. And if Kentucky's offense can step up here at home, I think they will. They've had some of their better offensive games at home this year, Kentucky. I think they'll feel more comfortable. That defense played well against South Carolina, and I think they can hold Kentucky in this game. Again, for Florida, when you look at it, 2 big games with Alabama, Tennessee. Now you're going on the road laying points, and let's not forget, road favorite role just once this year, South Florida. They did not cover that game, Florida. So, like I said, I've been more pro Kentucky than a lot of other bettors and handicappers. So, to me, it's not a surprise that I'm liking and a bet Kentucky here at plus 8.5 in this game against Florida on Saturday night. Conor is bounced out for a sec. We'll see if we can get him back. In the meantime, we'll continue Oklahoma and Kansas State. Next up, Oklahoma in this one. Right now, 10.5, 11 point road favorites, 52 the total. Well, I think you know where I'm going here. We cashed a ticket against Oklahoma last week. We're daring this team at this moment to find ways to win games by margin, which they're not doing at this point in time. And we're going to dare them to show us that they can win by margin here in this game against Kansas State. So I think for Oklahoma, until I see signs of them improving, I'm going to be looking to bet against them. They struggled to beat Nebraska by margin. They struggled to beat West Virginia by margin. In fact, very, very fortunate they even won that game at all, straight up, escaping essentially with the 16-13 win. Gabe Burkich kicking the game-winning field goal as time expired in that game. It's a struggle right now to win at all for Oklahoma, let alone win by margin. Like I said, 7 points or less margin of victories the last 2 weeks. against Nebraska and West Virginia. Spencer Rattler and the offense is out of sorts. And now they got to go on the road, face a scrappy bunch, Kansas State, and a Kansas State team that, okay, they lost and failed to cover against Oklahoma State on the road last week, 31-20. But that was on the road, and Oklahoma State's a good football team. No shame in that for Kansas State. Defense hung in there as long as they could, but Will Howard struggled, and they actually replaced him with Jaron Lewis, who played better at the quarterback spot later in that game for Kansas State. That's the one issue with Kansas State in this game. Their quarterback play is very, very suspect, very, very spotty. Skylar Thompson is the best they've got, and even he, is mediocre. And then Will Howard's not very good. He really struggled against that Okie State defense last week. And do you trust if they either go to him or they put the other kid that took over for him, Lewis, in the game here against Oklahoma? I'm not so sure, but I'm telling you right now, I'm not laying double digits with Oklahoma on the road. Kansas State seems to even be at their best when they're in Manhattan in the Little Apple, like they are for this game. And, let's not forget, there's been some scary moments for Oklahoma playing Kansas State in years past. Last year, they lost outright to Kansas State as 28-point underdogs, and Kansas State beat them 2 years ago. Kansas State's won 2 straight head-to-head against Oklahoma. Now, Kansas State.
What else you got to say?
Yep. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm right there. Double-digit team like this at home. This is the spot we talked about even last week. Some people liked K-State, and I did, but on the road with Howard, I couldn't take them, so it was a pass. But they're back at home. Oklahoma, they're just, not very good. Their offense isn't playing well. The defense was just all right. That West Virginia was the easy cover. Way too many points. I think this is too many points here. This is where I want K-State at home, catching more here. I wanted to touch on that Florida game. Are you on Kentucky?
I am indeed, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'll touch on it real quick. I'm going to pass. Kentucky, I think, still has some growing pains. This is a good spot. I wanted more points with them here. I wanted at least over 10. I didn't think they looked great against South Carolina, and how good South Carolina. And is Florida elite? If they are, I think they go in there and cover. But it's always a tough game. I just needed more points in that one.
All right, we move along now to the next one. It's Michigan, Wisconsin. It's a big one in the Big Ten. How about Michigan? 1-point favorite at Camp Randall in Madison, and 43.5 the total. I'm kind of disappointed. I was really looking to back Michigan potentially, but now we're talking road favorite. We're seeing Wisconsin's being devalued finally. They've already lost to Penn State. They've struggled in a lot of the other, like even in the Eastern Michigan game, it was not a convincing, dominant game in that one. And of course, the Notre Dame game, it gets away from them in the fourth quarter. Graham Mertz is struggling. We've talked about that. He's struggling to make plays down the field in the passing game. Teams are just loading up the box right now against Wisconsin's offense and saying, we're not letting you run. We're going to dare this kid to make something happen. And he's not making anything happen. He's making shit happen right now for this Wisconsin offense. Graham Mertz, absolutely awful. Their offense is in shambles. I don't want to back Wisconsin here. I mean, they've already shown you twice, clearly, in 2 step-up-in-class games, Penn State and Notre Dame, that they can't be trusted to get the job done. However, they were 5.5-point favorites in one. They were 6-point favorites at home in the other, or neutral field in the other, 5.5-point home favorites against Penn State, and now they're a pick-em. So the line value is definitely Wisconsin here. There's no doubt. But I don't always just bet line value. I don't like the way things are going for Wisconsin. And Michigan had to hang on, survive a feisty, solid defensive team like Rutgers last week. And the offense finally looked human for the first time. Not surprising. Now they get into Big Ten play, and it's going to look like the same old Michigan offense, right? Plodding, suspect. Cade McNamara throwing the ball was a little bit rough, 9 of 16. Only completed 9 passes, 163 yards last week. The run game was corralled a little bit by Rutgers. Blake Corum and Hassan Haskins, that duo, they only had 109 yards combined on the ground in 33 attempts, 33 carries. So Rutgers' defense really stopped them. That's the one thing Wisconsin can do, still stop the run. So I could only back Michigan here, But we're talking about Michigan's 0-6 against the spread. Their last 6 Big Ten conference games. Here we go again. Jim Harbaugh just doesn't cover conference games. Now they got to not only cover this one, they got to win on the road and win a road game against a solid enough. They're not a great team, Wisconsin. We found that out. They got to win the game here against, on the road, which Jim Harbaugh and Michigan have had a tough time winning games on the road against solid or better competition. So it's a tough one. I lean Michigan. I probably have a small bet on them, but I don't know. The line value is Wisconsin, but I don't want anything to do with Wisconsin because their offense is a disaster right now. So if I had to, I'd take Michigan. What do you think, C-Mac?
Yeah, I don't want either of these teams. Period. I don't want any part of this game. I think Wisconsin isn't very good. I thought Mertz wasn't good last year, and there were all these high hopes. Wisconsin hasn't looked good all year, and I don't trust Michigan. We've already talked about that. Now they got to go on the road and win it. Good luck. I hope they can. I got to see it, so I'm not going to put my money on it, but good luck to Harbaugh. Hopefully he can get this win. He needs it. This would be a decent win. They need it.
He needs it. And that was a nice win against Rutgers, although you kind of sputtered and scuffled your way to the finish line last week against Rutgers. This is the win that's going to make people take notice. That's going to, make people look and say, I know Wisconsin now has lost 2 games to good teams, Penn State, Notre Dame, but still to go on the road and beat them, from Michigan team that's not known for winning big road games under Jim Harbaugh. This would get people's attention. Hey, maybe you're on to something this year if you're Michigan, but they got to get it done. And even though Wisconsin's vulnerable right now, the offense is just in complete tatters right now. Still got to trust Michigan to win on the road. That's not always easy to do. Mississippi State, Texas A&M, next game on the slate. We've only got a few left. We've got Texas A&M, 7-point home favorites, 47.5 the total in this game. Money's already poured in on State, and some of it's mine. I'm on the road dog here, Mississippi State. A&M's an overvalued commodity. I don't know what else to say. The defense is excellent, but Calzada in the offense is a work in progress. We look at Mississippi State. I thought I was impressed with the fight in Mississippi State. That didn't start out well against LSU last weekend when they played them. But that offense really got some traction going. And week by week, Mississippi State, Will Rogers is getting better at quarterback for Mississippi State. Week by week, they're putting up more points. And that's 2 weeks in a row, all right? 2 weeks in a row where Mississippi State probably should have won the game. 31-29 against Memphis, 28-25 loss to LSU. They outgained Memphis and LSU by a combined 365 yards. Now, I know they were trailing a decent amount of the game against LSU. That factored into it, the yardage count. But Mississippi State's played well enough to win those games. They should have beat Memphis. They could have beaten LSU. And now they're getting more than a touchdown here against an A&M offense I don't trust to put up points in bunches. The money's just steamed in on A&M. And they got a lot of injuries, too, coming out of that Arkansas game on Saturday. Running back injuries, wide receiver injuries. Skill position talent group took a hit for Texas A&M from an injury standpoint against Arkansas. So check that injury report going into this game. But regardless, if I'm betting this game, I've already bet the dog. It's down to 7 now. I got it 8.5 on it. It's down to 7 now, but it's dog or pass for me, even at the current number. What do you think here, Conor Mack, Mississippi State, A&M?
Yeah, I like Mississippi State with the points here and the under. I think this A&M just can't move the ball. They still have a pretty good defense, we talked about. I see an under here, and I see the points. I just don't trust A&M at all. I mean, we all talked about, we thought Arkansas would handle them. I mean, I'm not impressed at all. They will be at home, but I don't want to lay points with them right now. I would just pass. I think you take the dog here, you just pass.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where I am. That's where I stand on this one as well. Northwestern and Nebraska. We just talked about dog or pass in the last game. A familiar theme in this one as well. A Nebraska 10.5-point home favorite, 51 the total in this game. This is a Northwestern spot for me. This team will get better. Now, look, Northwestern, it's really rough start to the season. No question. But we expected that, right? They lost a ton on both sides of the football from last year. In terms of returning production, Northwestern was near the bottom in FBS football coming into this year. And so they had their growing pains. They got whipped by Michigan State in their opener. They lost to Duke a couple weeks ago, 30-23. Now, I know Ohio was balls. They're terrible. But they did what I was hoping I'd see from them. They whipped Ohio 35-6 in that game. And look, they made a quarterback change, and he didn't light it up, but I thought he made plays when he had to. And Ryan Helinski, South Carolina transfer. I'm glad they replaced Hunter Johnson. That guy was just a turnover machine. And you can see why he moved on from, or Auburn moved on from him. He just wasn't good there. He didn't win the job there. And sure enough, he finally, Pat Fitzgerald had enough, replaced Johnson with Ryan Helinski. And I think that gives them a little bit more of a better chance of going into this one. I'm still suspect of Nebraska's double-digit favorites here. I am. I mean, Fordham and Buffalo were down a bit this year against Oklahoma. Good game from them there. Fought hard against a good Michigan State team. But now we're talking about being asked to win by double digits here. It's just been a brutal point spread roll from Nebraska. There is concern that maybe Northwestern's just not good enough to go on the road and hang here in this game. That does concern you just a bit, but you look also at series history. You go back the last 4 meetings, 7-point win for Northwestern in overtime, 3-point win for Northwestern in overtime, 3-point win for Nebraska 2 years ago, and then Northwestern won last year. The last 4 meetings, Nebraska's won 1 game, and it was by a field goal. Yeah, I'll dare Nebraska to win by upwards of 2 touchdowns here. Give me the dog. Give me Pat Fitzgerald in a point spread role as an underdog where he's been money for nearly 2 decades that he's been head coach in Northwestern. What do you think here, C-Mac?
These are like K-State. These are I like last week, like you said, they do have quarterback problems, a little bit there at Northwestern, but they never have a great quarterback. So this is a team with defense, and Nebraska's played better lately. I got to give it to them, but they can't lay 10.5. I can't feel confident at taking them here. Like you said, this is just a good old dogfight. I think it's, a touchdown's going to be the winner. Like you talked about, most of those games were 3 points. I think it's close here. So, yep, I got to take Northwestern and the 10.5 here.
I mean, Nebraska's making progress. I don't doubt that. They hung tough with Oklahoma. I thought the effort against Michigan State, who have proven themselves to be a pretty good football team this year under Mel Tucker, was very good last week, losing in overtime, no shame. We're talking about now 10.5-point home favorite. Are we ready to trust Nebraska here in that role? I'm not just yet.
Yeah, they just win by bad. Yeah, can they just win by a few touchdowns and make this look easy? I mean, I got to see it, so yeah. I want to see it. So,
and one thing I'll put my money on Pat Fitzgerald having his team a little bit better prepared for a game than Scott Frost right now.
Me too.
As well, and avoiding mental mistakes and penalties and turnovers and all the shit that always seems to plague Nebraska week in and week out. So fascinating game though. And like I say, I think Helinski, maybe not much of an upgrade, but he is an upgrade, I think, from Hunter Johnson going into this game here. And, I think, again, the trench play for Northwestern, it's been weaker this year. You get concerned, can Nebraska outman them in the trenches? I'm going to have to see it still before I believe it. And again, the series history, it's been the only win in the recent years for Nebraska was that 3-point win a couple years ago. Every other game's been Northwestern. And you're right, Northwestern, it's not a quarterback factory. What the hell are their best quarterbacks the last 2 years? Mike Kafka, Trevor Siemian? That's probably it. And that's not exactly a shining list of players that have gone on to the next level and thrived. That's putting it mildly. All right, Western Kentucky and Michigan State. Michigan State 10.5-point home favorites, 61.5 the total. Look, I was on the dog, Western Kentucky, and the over against Indiana. Michigan State finally didn't cover. They were 4.5, 5-point favorites against Nebraska. They win by 3 in overtime. It's a non-conference game here. Once again, just like last week, this is like Western Kentucky, Indiana all over again. I like the underdog, Western Kentucky. I'll probably take them at above 10, but I like the total more, and that's the over. Michigan State's got some offense this year with Peyton Thorne, Kenneth Walker, the running back. They've got a very good defense, too. That's the one concern. But Western Kentucky's moved the ball against everybody they've played. And the one thing about Michigan State, they haven't played a ton of amazing passing games across the board yet this year. Martinez in Nebraska, erratic passing attack. De'Aaron King in Miami, that's been a disappointing passing game this year. Northwestern, Michigan State faced them. They had no passing game to speak of. You're facing an air raid pass heavy offense here now for Western Kentucky. And people said that Michigan State, if they had one little weakness on their defense, it was the secondary. Well, now this secondary is going to get tested by obviously a team that throws the football, 80 to 90% of the time, Western Kentucky. So I think Western Kentucky could put some points up on the board against that Sparty secondary. But Michigan State's offense, again, Western Kentucky's defense is definitely susceptible. Indiana had a tough offensive start to the year. They got right. They got well last week. Michael Penix Jr. against this Western Kentucky defense. So I think they'll give up points as well. I lean dog, small bet on the dog. Stronger opinion for me on this game is the over, though. Western Kentucky, Michigan State. And again, I'm not going to fight the numbers. The numbers are every game has gone over the total this year for Western Kentucky. The mispriced Western Kentucky game totals from the beginning. And at this point, I'm just riding the over every game until it stops cashing. And that's what I'm going to do again here. Conor, what do you think? WKU and Michigan State.
Yeah, I'm going to wait and look into this game a little bit more. I agree with you. I've been on those over. Western Kentucky go up and down the field. Problem is Michigan State just isn't an over team. But we'll see. This will be the best team Western Kentucky's faced all year. Will they be able to hang probably 28 or more on them? If they do, I think it gets over because I think Michigan State scores 30 or more. So yeah, that total, it's moved down just a little bit, 61.5. I'm gonna wait on this one. I'd also lean with Western Kentucky a bit, catching the 10.5. I just don't know if I can get to the window with it.
All right, last couple games now on this Saturday college football look ahead on the Hitting the Book show. 90 live viewers, hit the like button. Make sure you do that if you haven't already. Arizona State, UCLA. UCLA 3.5 point home favorites, 55 being the total in this one. It's a really good game. I expect it to be a really good game with both of these teams. UCLA with the loss to Fresno, wondered how they'd respond, and they responded pretty well. On the road at Stanford, they win 35-24 last week. They outgained the Cardinal by 107 yards. Dorian Thompson-Robinson was good, clean football game, no mistakes. DTR, 18-29, 251 through the air. Charbonnet, excellent running the football, 118 rushing yards in that game. The defense stepped up, played a pretty good game, obviously, against Tanner McKee, was a red-hot quarterback for Stanford. Going into that game. Now they'll take on Arizona State, who beat Colorado 35-13 last week. We'll see how they fare here in this one. Back home, UCLA, it's a good game. I lean a little bit, though, to Arizona. I did make a small bet on Arizona State here. You look at last year, UCLA won 25-18 at Arizona State, and Arizona State outgained UCLA in that game. When I look at this here, it's just this is going to be a good challenge for UCLA with this ASU team. Good defense, Jaden Daniels, solid dual threat quarterback. I know it was a bad loss for them. Not a bad loss. I mean, I shouldn't say like they didn't lose to a terrible team, but I know the loss against BYU a couple weeks ago, that was disappointing for Arizona State, but turnovers really hurt them. They get above a field goal. It's not best bet material, but I'm interested in Arizona State getting more than a field goal. What do you think here, C-Mac?
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty all right win for UCLA last week. I kind of leaned Arizona State in the points too. This one I don't know if I'm going to bet, but the total has come down. I still think, here at 55, I think you get over. UCLA games are over past, and that game pushed for me with Stanford right at 59. This has dropped a little bit. Arizona State seems like one of these teams they can play a little bit lower scoring. They lost to BYU, but can play higher scoring with a team like UCLA that'll get up and down. And we'll see with Thompson. I know he's kind of banged up. He finished the game. I think he'll be fine. He should play at quarterback for UCLA. I think he'll be in. But yeah, I'll look over, and I might be on the dog here with Arizona State.
All right, our final game on this Saturday look ahead. It's Fresno State and Hawaii on the island. Fresno State 10.5 point road favorites in this game, 62.5 being the total in this game. I don't know if I'm ready to lay 10.5 with Fresno, but I expect last week to be a wake-up call for them after that sleepwalk effort for a half against UNLV. Kind of predictable. That was a big game for them against UCLA. That win was just enormous for Jake Haener, Kalen DeBoer, and that program. and they were fast asleep most of that game against UNLV. And to be honest with you, kind of fortunate they even won the game 38-30. And I think that's just one of those spots where they were not focused. They were lethargic. They were making mistakes left and right, turnover problems. Defense just didn't play well early in that game. I think they play a lot better here. I think offensively they can do what they want against Hawaii's defense. Again, Hawaii, just not a very good defensive team. They've been a little bit better last couple of weeks, but remember, San Jose State game on the island was a heavy wind. That impacted scoring. By the way, I like the over. That's what I bet here. But make sure you keep an eye on the wind because we saw it affect San Jose State, Hawaii 2 weeks ago. And that game was a low-scoring game because it was very windy there on the island. So keep an eye on that. But if there's no wind issues, I think Fresno moves the ball up and down the field against Hawaii's defense. They've scored 78 points the last 2 games, 40 and 38. They put 45 up against UConn on the road against a very good Oregon defense. They still scored 24 and moved the ball in that game. This is a legit Fresno offense. They'll put up a bunch of points. I think Hawaii will move the ball, though, especially at home. Chevin Cordero, now it was New Mexico State, but a great offensive performance from them, 41 in that game. They put up 27 on the road against a good Oregon State team. It should be points as long as there's not much wind. So that's what I'm hoping for. So I locked in the over now because I saw that total go up a little bit, 62. It went up to 62.5, 63. So I like the over in that game. Lean to the road favorite as well. Conor, what do you think? Fresno State, Hawaii.
Yeah, I'm staying far away. I'm staying far away from Hawaii games, especially when they're at home. There's just some weird shit that goes on. There's always penalties, just strange play late night there on Hawaii. So I think I'm going to stay. I'd be over. This is over or pass. I agree. Fresno should be better, but I'd be leery of them laying this many out there. It's not an easy place to go out there and cover, and you've seen teams have problems. They might win, but laying double digits, laying 10 here, I can't do it. So I think it's just over, pass, play the total here.
All right, good stuff. We will wrap up the show and say goodbyes in just a second. Quickly, I've made 4 NFL bets for Sunday. Washington football team against Atlanta. I think they win that game. It's a pick 'em. All they got to do is win the game. I think I know Washington's had a couple rough weeks, certainly a rough defensive game against Buffalo yesterday, but they beat the Giants before that. They hung tough with a good Chargers team. They're better than Atlanta. All right, the Giants lost all their receiving core, in that game against Atlanta on Sunday. I mean, Slayton got injured, Shepard got injured, and the offense just completely bogged down after that. We're going to give Atlanta credit for that win? You got to be kidding me. No. I think Washington wins that game. I'm on the football team in that one. Cleveland, Minnesota. I think it's cheap on Cleveland. I'm not looking at that Minnesota game as, wow, we've turned our season around. Not at all. I think Cleveland can win that game on the road near Pick'em. I like the Browns there. Arizona and the Rams. I like Arizona plus the points. They're back in the role I like them in. Underdog, getting points, good offense. Kyler Murray, backdoor always open. Rams coming off the huge, enormous win against Tom Brady and the defending champion Bucks. Live dog, in my opinion, divisional dog. We have seen the Rams at times, at least in the Jared Goff era under Sean McVay, these big wins, and they fall a little bit flat the next week, especially when they're favored. So I think that's a close game. Arizona, and again, obviously I'm on the over again with the Rams and even with Arizona. I mean, 2 very potent offenses, high total there, but I think it gets there. Stafford and Murray probably put on a show offensively in that game next Sunday. Is anybody scheming and play calling better than Sean McVay right now? I mean, my goodness, the play design and the execution of his offense right now, man, it's been impressive. Give him a lot of credit with what he's doing there. And Baltimore, Denver. I have bet Denver here, but reluctantly, I acknowledge that this is a major step up in class for them. They've played the Sisters of the Poor this year, the Broncos, for the most part. Like they haven't played anybody of significance. That's the one issue. And this is a big step up in class playing Baltimore after playing some of the teams they've played. The Jets with Zach Wilson, Jacksonville, the Giants. I mean, they just haven't played a very good schedule, Denver. But Baltimore's in a tricky spot here. They're banged up still on defense. They barely beat Detroit. They needed the mother of all miracle plays to happen. A record-setting 66-yard doink field goal from Justin Mother Tucker as I said on Twitter, to get the win in that one yesterday. That's what they needed. And barely life and death to beat the Lions in that game. And plus that just the amazing development of them winning the game in that fashion. They're celebrating like they won the Super Bowl. Harbaugh with the speech and just the adulation that Tucker set an all-time record with that field goal. And now they got to go on the road for the second straight week. Thin air, high altitude, elevation of Denver. Tricky spot for Baltimore. They're the better team probably. We don't know how good Denver is yet. I think they're really good. I really think they're good. Teddy doesn't make mistakes too often at quarterback, Teddy Bridgewater. The defense has been sensational. They're still banged up, Baltimore, traveling on the road for a second straight week, coming off that thrilling miracle kick victory. I don't think it's a shoe-in, even though Denver hasn't played anybody, that Baltimore goes in there and wins. I like Denver in that game, and I bet Denver. So there you go. Conor, actually, you know what? Before we get to sponsors and say goodbye, any final thought, any game, college, NFL you want to throw out that you like this weekend?
No, I'll run through a few NFL that I've looked at. I haven't bet yet. I'm with you with the Broncos to just win it here. There's still a lot of 1.5s out there. I agree with the Cardinals. This has already moved to 6. I think, Rams, the huge win. They are at home. I think Arizona and Murray can keep it close. What was one more? I also looking at Seattle, but that defense has been horrible. But you do have Russell Wilson. Division game. I looked at that. If I can, I know the hook was initially there. Maybe if I get 3.5, I'd be on Seattle or San Francisco catching the points.
All right, there we go. There's some early week NFL Sunday looks. Again, for a full in-depth, every single game breakdown of the NFL card for this week, tune in tomorrow night, Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern. Jimmy the Bag, Bebsy, Rob Bebenick. They'll take you through Beat the Line and the entire NFL card. Tuesday night. Monday Night Football live stream tonight. Eagles, Cowboys, NFC East battle here on the channel. The Monday Night Football game.
No Monday night game tonight.
For our opinion. I hate to do this, but we do have a show coming up top of the hour. MLB, it'll be so short. There's 2 MLB games, and then we'll talk Monday Night Football on that show. So I'm sorry, I'm doing the bait and switch. I get it. If you want our Monday Night Football opinion, tune in. Closing time. We will talk Monday Night Football on that show.
Perfect. I just add today there won't be Monday Night Football live stream, I think. So I'm not positive. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, not tonight. So we'll see if we'll have it. So to be continued.
Determined. Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Great show. We will wrap it up in a second, but first, we'll get messages from our sponsors right now, Manscaped and Southtown 101. All right, Southtown 101. When you're in San Antonio, Texas, make sure you stop in there. Great food, drinks, live music, DJs, karaoke as well. Southtown 101. Manscaped, promo code PubSports, 20% off your purchase of the Lawnmower 4.0 or any product on manscaped.com using that promo code PubSports. And mybookie.ag. We've got football season well underway, a month already gone by. Football season just flies by. It comes and goes before you know it. But hockey and basketball are both right around the corner. NHL, NBA starting in October, college basketball a month later. So make sure you sign up for an account at mybookie.ag. Get yourself ready for all of that. Bitcoin accepted currency for your deposit as well. Mybookie.ag, promo code PubSports. All right, that's about a wrap. Final thoughts, Conor. We're back at the top of the hour. MLB closing time show, and we'll talk Monday Night Football on that show.
Yeah, check us out. Basketball coming soon. Shout out to our guy, Dutch Boy Fresh in the chat. You'll be seeing him soon. We'll have NBA and just shortly in a month. And go check out our merch, guys. It's great.
Yeah.
The hoodies, the long sleeve, they're right here on YouTube. It's right below. They got socks, shirts, the hoodies. I got to get a couple of them. You can get them in orange, royal blue, white. The white one's great. Go cop some Pub Sports Radio merch. It's fire. It's good shit. Get it.
Yeah, it is. Great designs as well. Really well designed. Great merch. Lots of stuff there for you to take advantage of. So make sure you check out the merch store for sure for Pub Sports Radio. Great gear. Get yourself some gear. We're going to get ourselves a little break here, a little 30-minute respite, catch our breath, and then we'll be back at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific, MLB closing time. Conor, Mac, me, and Ski Prophet. We'll break down, what's left of the MLB. There's like 2 games tonight. We'll talk about both of them. And we'll also, of course, preview. That's going to give us more time to preview Monday Night Football. We'll talk side total props, Eagles, Cowboys. We'll have you covered for the game tonight on the closing time show at the top of the hour. For Conor, Mac, I'm Ian Cameron. Hit those books. Have a great week. Good luck this week in football, NFL, and college. We'll see you next Monday. Once again, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific for another edition of Hitting the Books right here on Pub Sports Radio.